Okay, I really, really hope this is working. I came to start the live and realised that my lighting was completely wrong. I've spent the last 15 minutes just messing around with this little remote control. So I'm hoping this is fine. Let me know if everyone can hear me fine. And yeah, happy winter solstice. I feel like today has just kind of sneaked up on me, whatever the word is. Last time I checked, I was watching like vlogmases from different people, and it was like, this is Vlogmas day 5, Vlogmas day 6, and now it's like, yeah, it's Vlogmas day 21, Christmas is in 4 days. And I'm not quite sure how any of that happened. So tonight's live is going to be a little bit shorter, I think, than some of my others, mostly because it is the winter solstice, and I know that a lot of you have your own celebrations that you want to attend and that you want to carry out, and also I have things tonight that I am planning on doing for the winter solstice. So this live stream, I'm going to try. Some of you will know how hard it is for me to not stream for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I'm going to try to keep it a little short, so that we can all go and do winter solstice things, because it just happens that the Wednesday falls on the winter solstice, so yay to me. And yeah, hello to everyone. I've already seen some of your messages while I was desperately trying to fix my lighting. So we have, let's have a look, we've got, I did see someone from Denmark, Denver, Manchester, Wolverhampton, Ohio, Poland, ooh, Surrey. I love this one. Happy Yule from a hedge in Surrey. Just in a hedge. I'm honestly surprised you've got internet connection. Pennsylvania. Is it Arkansas? I can never pronounce American names. I struggle to do it so badly. So, Essex, Hungary, more people. Okay, so tonight's live is going to be much like all of the others, except we're doing it on the winter solstice. So feel free to ask any questions about witchcraft, paganism, spellwork, spirits, Sabbats, whatever it is that you want to ask, and I will try my best as a practicing witch to answer them as best as I can. Now, as always, I'm not going to be able to answer everyone's questions, though I do try to get through them as many of them as I can. But please remember that I do everything chronologically, or at least I try to. I know that the last few live streams I've kind of bounced around a bit to keep the stream flowing easily and like smoothly. But I try to always do chronologically, so please don't spam questions, because it's quite likely that I simply haven't seen the question yet. And also, if I've answered the question before, I have a full video on it, or I've covered it many, many, many times, I might skip over a question, because otherwise I get to bore everyone who sits through me all of the time, like my mods. So thank you so much to the mods that are on tonight, helping keep this little chat all safe and comfy and nice and cozy, because let's face it, the internet is a terrifying place. So we have a few more. We've got Kentucky, Iowa, Brazil, Georgia, Somerset. Oh, I love a good bit of Somerset. Poland. What else have we got? Florida. Ooh, lots of people from lots of places. And thank you so much. Greetings from Western North California. Oh, Carolina. Sorry, I assumed it was California straight away. Carolina. I'm a new half-closeted witch. I want to send you a package, but how? If you were to send me a DM on Instagram, then I can have a chat with you a bit more there and figure that out if that's what you want to do. But please don't feel like you need to send me anything. Like, really, I'm completely fine with you just talking to me on here. Like, that's good. That's fine with me. Happy solstice from New York. So I did have a question up here, which is, how can you protect yourself, or how to protect yourself tonight? So I suppose the first question, I'm gonna be really annoying here. I'm gonna do what I always do, where I answer a question with a question. But first question is, why are you after protection? That's probably the first thing to answer. You don't have to like message it into the chat. Just like think it through in your own mind, you know? And you need to think about kind of why you want protection specifically tonight. Is there a specific reason why you want protection? Is it because you're doing spellwork and ritual? Is it because of spirit interactions? Or are you just after doing protections tonight and then going forwards? So if you are just wanting protection for a specific ritual or a specific spell, then try looking into circle casting. So it doesn't have to be ceremonial circle casting. It doesn't have to be like a Wiccan circle casting. This is where you would cast a circle, call in the quarters, call in the god and goddess, and then go from there. You don't have to do it like that. You can just do an energetic circle casting, which is essentially a bubble around you and the other people that you're working with, which allows you to fill it with your energy and then release it when you're done. It also stops other energies from influencing your working. So that's a good temporary solution. That can also be used as a temporary shield. I have 2 videos on my channel. One is a shield spell, and then the other is for, what was I going to say? Circle casting. So those are both on my channel already. If you're after protection from spirits, it's really going to depend on kind of how long term you want it to be. So short term, you can use the shielding spells. You can also cast a circle if you like, but if you want something more long term, then you're going to want to look into either house warding or witches' balls, witches' bottles, witches' ladders even. Those are all good options, as well as amulets and other such longer term protection items. So there's quite a lot of different options there, and it's going to very much vary on what it is that you're after protection from and also how long you want it for, because I know that a lot of people do protections at the winter solstice for the entire year to come, in which case you're going to want to look into something like witches' balls and witches' bottles. They're really good. But if you just want short-term protection, then just something like a basic shield. You can have it up for a short amount of time. One that I do quite regularly is that I will gather up all of my energy and I will just push it out into like a bubble. And I just imagine that bubble getting denser and denser and denser and harder. So it becomes kind of like an egg, like a coloured egg around me. And then I will then attach that onto something like the sunrise. So if there's something around me that I'm not quite comfortable with, recently I went to Glastonbury and there was a spirit in the house that we were staying in. And when you don't have your house protections up, it can be a little unnerving. So you just create like an egg, and then you attach it to say sunrise, so that that egg is going to stay in place until the sun rises, and then that energy is going to break down again. That's an easy way of adding in kind of like a time limit into it, so you know when that working is going to finish. So yes, those are all kind of good protection options in there. What you use is going to very much depend on what you require. Oh, thank you so much, Unruly. Thank you so much. And Valerie, thank you so much. It really, really means a lot to me. And I hope you all have a fantastic winter solstice. So I'm going to, I'm going to answer this question while I'm talking about circle casting, because it kind of all fits in. How do you know the energy work, like making the circle, works? So this is a question that I think a lot of us have in our magical practice. It can be a little bit tricky, because how do you know that any magic works? You get a result. But when it comes to something like a circle, it can be a little bit tricky. So my advice for this is to practice casting a circle, like an energetic circle, regardless of whether or not you have a spell or a ritual that you want to do within it. So cast that circle and then drop it again. Cast that circle, drop it again. And you might find if you cast that circle and you hold it for quite a while, maybe like 5-10 minutes, you will start noticing that the air inside that circle feels different. So this is something that I've experienced quite a lot in my practice, is that I will cast a circle, and then if I'm doing, say, a 30-40 minute long ritual, when I drop the circle again, all of a sudden it's like there's fresh air. Like all of a sudden the air goes cold and it's fresh and there's a breeze that there wasn't there before. And I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but that's what I get within my own energetic circle castings. And that's how I know that it's been a strong circle, because when you break that circle, all of a sudden the air is like fresh and it's really nice. So that could be a good thing to try and see how it feels to you, because while you've got that energy circle up, you're not going to be able to sense anything really outside of it the same as you would before. You're also not going to experience energy quite the same. It's going to feel different because you're trapped in this, well, trapped isn't really the right word, but you're enclosed in this special little space. So everything that you're building up is going to linger around you and it's going to feel different. So it might feel warm, or it might feel staticky, or it might even feel cold for you. But how that feels is going to be very different person to person. So that's why I would always recommend trying your circle castings so that you can just practice how they feel, so that when you come to do an actual ritual, you already know how it's going to feel. So yeah, that is a good option. For any kind of specific questions about celebrating Yule, I've noticed that there are a few. I do have an entire video on celebrating Yule and the things that I will do around this season, and that even if I don't do them, I think could be quite good for anyone else to do them. So if you do have any specific questions about how to celebrate, that video might be a good stop, because that is like 40 minutes of me explaining it. I actually don't even remember how long that video is. And I do have videos on my channel on circle casting as well. So if you want to check those out, those are all on the channel. Okay, where was I? I think I was kind of here-ish. Yes, I was here-ish. This is always how it works, and then it jumps, and then I lose it all again. Oh, when doing candle magic, do I have to keep the circle open while my candle burns down the whole way? I mean, really that depends on what it is that you're doing. So if you've... how to explain this in the simplest way possible whilst not spending 40 minutes doing it. So there's kind of two main ways to do circle casting, to do candle magic. And which one you use is going to vary whether you want to use a circle or not. So some people will always use a circle. Personally, I don't, unless I need to gather energy up for a specific purpose. So you have candle magic that is based off the element. You are using the candle as a representation, a figure, or you might be working with the fire element, those kind of situations. You then have candle magic where you're using the candle as a vessel to store energy. Now, if you're using the candle as a vessel, typically you would cast a circle while you're charging that candle, because you're imbuing the length of that candle with your energy, and then you seal it inside. So then, as it burns down, you release that energy. But you don't need to have a circle going while you're releasing that energy. Otherwise, you're not releasing the energy. You're just keeping it trapped in this bubble, and it's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to manifest anything. So in that instance, you would cast a circle while you're energizing that candle, so that none of that energy is dissipating and it's all being funneled into that candle. But then when you burn it, you're not going to want a circle, because it's going to block the energy from being released. If you're using the fire element, for instance, or you're using the candle as representation, so for instance, you are chanting over a colored candle, or you are wanting to connect and you're calling forwards the fire element, and you're using a fire element candle, like a red or an orange or those kind of colors. In that case, you are actively doing the spell work and ritual as that candle is burning down. And then that's really going to depend on your practice, because some people want to gather all of that energy up, so when they drop the circle, all of that energy gets released all in one go. For other people, they might want to release that energy little by little, and so they're not going to want to circle. So I know that that's kind of a broad answer, but it's because candle magic's a really broad topic. So really it's going to depend on how you practice candle magic and what it is that you want to achieve with it. And if you need anything more specific, feel free to let me know, and I will try to answer that as well. But yeah, candle magic is one of those topics where it sounds like a really small category, but actually it's like massive. Do you have a simple ritual incantation for burning a Yule log? So I personally don't have a fireplace, so I don't burn a Yule log actively myself. Though there is one, for any of you who haven't seen the video. I think YouTube actually stopped people from seeing the video. I was getting comments from people saying that my Sabrina video, the new one, just never appeared for them. Like, I posted about it on Instagram and people were like, I didn't know this video existed. So if you haven't seen that video, in that, towards the start of the video, they have an incantation for their Yule log. And it's a really, really simple, like 4-sentence chant that you can use. I don't remember it off the top of my head. If anyone does know what it is, feel free to put it in the comments. My memory is not that good. But in that video, I do specifically say what it is, and you can use that. And really any chant that you like. I mean, a Yule log is designed for protection and for blessing and for health and healing. So you can kind of mush a bunch of words together if you like, find something with a rhythm that you appreciate, and then go for that. Or you can just simply say some meaningful words over it. Just heartfelt words that you want to manifest into the year to come. And if anything, that's probably better to do than having, say, just a generic Yule log blessing or ritual incantation, those kind of things. So that's a good option as well. And honestly, that's kind of where I would typically lean towards, mostly because I can't remember basically anything that I read. You would think that having read so many books, I'd be able to remember the things that I read, but I never remember like word to word of it. Does that make any sense? That might not make any sense at all. So, where was I? I was around here somewhere. Ooh. Oh, wait, it just jumped. Oh, it jumped all the way to the bottom. Goodness sake. It was someone's birthday, and I wanted to say happy birthday, and I've managed to completely lose where was it? Okay, I will find that. It's here somewhere. In the meantime, I will answer the next question that I can find, and then I will go back to it. If you are new here, YouTube has a tendency to like flirt me down to the bottom, and then I have to like scroll all the way back up again. So, what magical plans have you got for Yule, if it's not a secret? So, I actually don't really have that many plans. I've had such a manic few days, and I'm completely run down, completely run down. I just want a break, and I'm thinking in January I might take like a couple of weeks to just process everything, because like, damn, this season is just absolutely manic. So I have a few candles on my altar that I'm lighting, and then that's pretty much all that I'm doing. And yeah, it's really chill. I often find that I don't do that much for Yule, though I absolutely love the season. I just find that with Christmas, and my family does celebrate Christmas, so I end up celebrating Christmas, that I basically just spend like the entire month of December just in a frantic panic to get things sorted for Christmas. So yeah, that's not so great. So my Yule celebrations are usually pretty chill and relaxed, and it's mostly going to consist of me watching monster shows on TV, because that is like the best television that there is, in my opinion. Any tips for a witch who is struggling with believing in her magic? So this is one where it's really hard to answer, mostly because what one person will perceive as belief, another person doesn't. What one person will believe in, another person won't. The only thing I can say is simply just focus on how you feel, right? So don't focus on, oh my goodness, I didn't get a result in the exact amount of time, or what if what I saw isn't real? What if this is just a coincidence? Instead, focus on how it makes you feel. Do you enjoy the ritual process? Do you enjoy getting your hands dirty and crafting things? Do you enjoy doing research within witchcraft? And focus on how it makes you feel rather than the things that may or may not be true. Because at the end of the day, how it makes you feel is going to be true regardless. You know, if something makes you happy, then it makes you happy. And don't worry about the outcome, because the more you worry about an outcome, the more likely it is to not happen. Or we will go the opposite way and we'll worry about something going wrong, and then it ends up going wrong because we're so hyper focused on it going wrong and doubting ourselves that we end up essentially dumping ourselves in shit. So like, try and focus as best as you can on just the things that you enjoy out of it, and everything else kind of follows. Because I think a lot of us are very guilty of being like, oh my goodness, this didn't manifest in the exact amount of time. But then if you were to look back in, say, 6 months, you'd be like, oh, it did manifest, just not in the specific amount of time that I thought it would. So just try not to second guess yourself and just kind of relax into it. Okay, next one. Here we go. Hi from Iran. My birthday is in 2 days. Happy birthday in advance. I wanted to ask, are there any specific things that can be done on birthdays, especially for beginners? So generally, you can do anything on your birthday, but especially manifesting things for the year to come can be really good for birthdays, because you're essentially saying, well, whilst I'm this old, I want to manifest these things. And so you can write pieces of paper with your goals on them, and you can store them in a little box with herbs or other items that you think are significant. So you can adapt one of the manifestation boxes. I did a video on the manifestation box a few weeks ago. So you can adapt that style of working and simply do it for your birthday. And then every year you would change out the things in it and you would replace it with new things. You can also obviously use things like birthday candles to do wishing spells where you focus on your goal and then you blow your wish into the candle and release it into the world. So those are the really simple things that you can do for birthday celebrations. And if you are interested in astrology, then this is a really good time to be working things that represent your astrological signs and the things that really represent you as a person. So that's a good option as well. Okay, I think I was. Oh, can trauma cause psychic abilities to amplify? I mean, I can't really speak on trauma. I'm not a professional in that situation. But when it comes to like stressful situations, emotional upheavals, all those kind of things that really turn your life inside out and upside down, they can have strong opposing results. So in some cases, you will find that people will experience way more psychic abilities after an event. Or in some people, it will completely shut down any psychic abilities. So it definitely isn't an either. It's not like a one way or the other. It very much varies, and how people will respond to it is going to base on their situation, their mental state, and all those things. But yeah, if anyone goes through a situation like that, regardless of whoever wrote the question or whether it relates to you or not, please, if you can, talk to someone. Like, more important than anything is focus on yourself and getting yourself in a good headspace before focusing on developing or reducing psychic abilities, those kind of things, because being in a good headspace is really important, and that applies to everyone regardless of whether you've been in a terrible situation or not. I think everyone needs to work on their headspace a little bit, even if you just do that yourself. You know, it doesn't necessarily require going to talk to a professional, but that can be really useful. It's always that song. It is. I don't even know what the song is. It's always one of them. Is it safe to meditate without establishing protection? Yes, I would say so. It really all depends on what you're trying to do, though. I mean, and it also depends on the space that you're in as well. So if you're in a space where there's lots of spirit activity, there's lots of unwanted energies, maybe you live in an apartment building where there's lots of people, then it could be worth having protections, because when we are meditating, we are very exposed and we are not entirely focused on our external environment. We're more focused on our internal environment. So in that case, it could be a good idea to have protections. If you're working with spirits and deities, it could also be a good idea to have protections against spirits you don't want. Now, that's quite difficult unless you've already interacted with spirits before, but if you can have protections up to keep anything out that you don't want in your space, then that is a good option as well. But generally, if you're just meditating to have a peaceful state of mind, if you're doing it to do some internal work, to focus on things, to meditate on something specific that you want answers to, then you don't really need protection necessarily. I'm new to ancestor work. Any tips for ancestor work during the winter solstice specifically? So I've obviously done a video, and it might not be obvious, I've done a video on ancestor work which will cover the winter solstice as well. So I'd recommend checking that out if you haven't already. But in regards to the winter solstice, now is a really common time for people to do dream magic and dream communication. And you might find that ancestors are more likely to come through to you in dreams than they are in any other form. So if you can remember your dreams, if you can do some dream work with them, then that could be a really good thing to... Holy shit. Sorry. Pardon my French. I'll get to that in a minute. So if you can do any kind of dream work with your ancestors, that could be a good option. One way of doing this, super simple way, is to sit down and to speak out to your ancestors. If you have an ancestor altar, this is a good way of doing this. And ask that if you were to ask a question, respond to you via dreams. And just make sure you have some personal protections, because you don't want other things answering you. But that's a good way to interact with ancestors. Oh my goodness. Shane, thank you so much. You are such a lovely person, and thank you so much for being here in every single live stream. Like, new profile photo, I still recognize the account, so thank you so much. It really, really means a lot to me for your support, and oh, you're so lovely, thank you. And Not Queen, thank you so much as well. Oh my goodness, everyone is so lovely tonight. I hope that everyone has a fantastic Christmas, Yule, winter solstice, whatever it is that you're going to be celebrating this year. Okay, I'm not going to cry. I refuse to allow myself to cry, so I'm just going to keep scrolling, just keep answering questions. And yeah, let's try not to cry. Okay. I left a toxic pagan community and I'm a little worried about them sending negativity my way. I wanted to do preemptive return to sender just in case. What would be the best way to do this? I mean, I personally wouldn't say a return to sender is going to do anything in this situation, because if there's nothing they've sent at you, there's nothing to send back. So I'd say I wouldn't necessarily do a return to sender, mostly because I think you're just going to be wasting your time and your energy. This is only speaking from personal experience. This entire channel is just me speaking from personal experience. I know I shouldn't have to say that, but I've never done a return to sender preemptively and had it be successful, because it's a bit like playing tennis with someone energetically. Like, if there's no ball to hit, you are just flailing your racket in the air and you're not going to do anything. So in this case, it could be worth doing some preemptive protections that will deal with that energy anyway. And generally, I wouldn't necessarily suggest return to sender if it's interacting with other pagans, other witches, because what can happen, and I've had the misfortune of seeing this happen to other people, is that they send energy your way, you whack it back at them again with return to sender. They then hit it back to you again with another return to sender, and before you know, you're just like playing table tennis with energy. It's just bouncing backwards and forth. It's exhausting, So in this case, I'd say maybe some preemptive protections, and it depends on your skill level. Obviously, it depends on what you're versed in, but maybe try looking into a servitor for protection specifically. So the idea behind this is that it's an energetic being. So it's a man-made spirit that you've programmed with a specific intention and a specific goal, and you then feed it energy to maintain it, and it will do said specific goal for you whilst you are doing other things. That way you don't have to always be thinking about, oh, well, what if it's today, or what if it's tomorrow, or what if it's in a week? Instead, it's like, okay, I have the servitor now. This is what I need. This is all I need. They will deal with it. And then have it so that when spirits or energies come your way, the servitor feeds on those energies. And that way that energy is destroyed. Well, it's not destroyed because you can't destroy energy, but it's no longer like floating around with the risk of harming you or negatively impacting you. Instead, your protection servitor is feeding off the energy that it's protecting you from. That way, kind of get the best of both worlds. You don't have to constantly be feeding the servitor to maintain it, because it's feeding on the energy that it's protecting you from. So that's a good option. Where's the book? I just said all of those words in like one sentence, but is it this one? Is it this one? Okay, I think sorry, that was really loud. I know that. What fell out? Why did Rennies fall out of a book? I think that might have been my makeshift bookmark. Okay, I think I was on this page. Okay. Colourpop eyeshadow, you are now makeshift bookmark. So there's a few books on the subject that I would recommend, and one of my favourites actually is this one. This is Create a Servitor Companion by John Kreiter. This one was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. And really, any book on servitors is pretty good, but they just give you a general overview of the kind of things that servitors are for and how to deal with them. There is another book, actually. If you were to go to if you're interested in servitors, that is, I have a video where it includes servitors. So I think it's one of my quarterly book breakdowns. And in the title, it says servitors. And it's like on the thumbnail, it says servitors. And in that, I have like 3 or 4 books on servitors that are really good. So, well, some of them are better than others, but I liked most of them. So those are all good options. And I'd say that's probably the most reliable option, is creating a servitor. That way you're not relying on an alarm system to tell you to then do a spell or ritual. Instead, your servitor is your alarm system and they are the spell and ritual, and it just kind of takes everything out of it. Oh, it's Moon River, isn't it? I always get Moon River in my head as well. What's your favourite Christmas, holiday, solstice, Yule story? Like the Yule Lads, or another or a memory you've had? I don't really have any like specific stories in mind. For me, it's mostly just the fact that where was I going with this? I started that sentence and I completely blanked. It's mostly just the fact that our modern celebrations contain so much pre-Christian tradition. So you have like the elves, and you have the flying reindeer, and you have the gift giving in stockings and shoes and socks, and these things are all very Shoemaker Elves-esque, which is a story that I think most people in where was I going with that? Most people in this country, anyway, in England, will know the story of the shoemaker and the elves. And so when you hear like the Christmas stories, and then you've got like Scrooge and the Ghost of Christmas, past, present, and future, and you're like, this is very reminiscent of pre-Christian belief, but it's kind of just been morphed and edited and altered into our modern Christmas celebrations. I think that's honestly my favourite bit, because most celebrations that we have today, like Easter, for instance, people are always like, but why bunnies and why eggs? And like, when you look into the pagan celebrations of like Ostara and stuff, suddenly it makes a lot of sense. And when you look into the symbolism of it, it makes sense. So that's something I really enjoy. And it's not necessarily a story, but it's just something I really enjoy. Here we go. Thank you so much, Andy. Creating Magical Entities by David Michael Cunningham. That's the one I'm thinking of. I don't know where I've put it. Right, my plan my plan when I have a break in January is to take down all of the books. All of them. I have like 3 or 4 bookshelves of books, and alphabetize them, because that way I know where every book is. I don't know if any of you would be interested in a video like that. It would be very long saying that, but I could break it up into parts. I don't know, but of just me alphabetizing my books and just going through them all, because I know that a lot of you like seeing more witchcraft books than I talk about, so yeah, that's an option. That's an option for when I have a break and I'm meant to be relaxing, but I'm incapable of actually relaxing, so I will inevitably be working through the entirety of my break. Trying to figure out where I was again. Ooh, I watched a witchy YouTuber who said you could use period blood to connect tools to yourself. Is this true? It is true. I will just put in here, I'm not sure if, I don't watch Witchcraft YouTube, so I don't know if they will have mentioned this, but do remember that it will rot. And so, not to get too gruesome and too gory or anything, but if you're using it on tools that you're going to have for a long time, that you're not going to want to clean necessarily thoroughly, it has the potential to be a bit of a biohazard after a while. So just bear that in mind. I mean, it's something you can do. Any tag lock will do. This includes hair that you can wrap around handles. This includes saliva. This includes lots of other things as well, or you just spend time with it. And that's probably the easiest, simplest way of connecting with a magical tool, whether that is a pendulum, a deck of cards, a chalice, an athame, whatever it is. Spending time around it is a great way of calibrating it, essentially, to your energy without having to smear things on objects and items. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying, just be careful, okay? I would love a book organization video. Yes. Witchy book organization. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to have to alphabetize them all first in a document. Otherwise, this is going to get messy. Because what you can't see in my videos, thankfully, is the stacks of books that are just kind of everywhere. So we'll have to see how that one goes, because I don't even think I have enough bookshelf space to actually put them all away again. So I'm going to have to sort that one out. Can you create an ongoing Google Doc with all of your book recommendations? Oh, I mean, I can definitely give it... I'm not very technologically savvy with these things, but I can give it a go. It would be something that I would do next year, though. A bit like how I know I mentioned a book club a few months ago. I literally have not had any amount of spare time to actually consider doing that, so I'm going to have to, like, allot a little space in my diary to actually figure out what the hell I'm doing with that. Because, like, I love the idea of doing it. It's just that I'm not quite sure how to fit it in and actually stay focused on it. Because what I wouldn't want to do is be like, hey guys, we're doing a witchy monthly book club. And then I just do month one and then I just can't maintain it. Do you know what I mean? Like I would want to be able to actually stick to it. So that is the plan. Are you going to write a book? I am trying, but I get incredibly easily distracted. Like crazy easy distracted. So like I will focus on something for like 12 to 16 hours and then I will disappear away from it for like 2 months. And then I'll come back and I'll write like 20,000 words and then I'll disappear for 6 months. So I'm trying. I'm trying and really struggling on it. Do I need to be wary of learning to see the Fae? I don't want to have them work with me, but rather just to acknowledge their presence. So, yes, I would say you do have to be wary, mostly because it's a little bit like spying on them in a way. Does that make sense? So if you don't want to work with them, but you want to acknowledge them, but you also want to see them, it's the equivalent of standing outside someone's bedroom window and just looking at them. Like, you don't want to interact with them. You just want to look. And that can be really touchy with a lot of spirits and with lots of people as well. I think we can all agree that's not always, certainly not in most cases, a smart thing to do. So just be wary of that, because if you can see, they can see. And it goes both ways, right? So once you're able to acknowledge them, they are then more likely to acknowledge you and potentially like drag you in to things that they want you to be involved in as well. So when it comes to the Fae, be wary, not scared. And that applies to all spirits. If you're working with any spirit, whether that is a demon, whether that is an angel, whether that's an ancestor or a fairy, whatever it is, be wary, not scared, and just make sure that you're keeping yourself safe. Have your protections, have house protections, have personal protections, do protection spells if necessary before you want to interact and recognize them, you know, before you start trying to acknowledge their presence. Have that in place as something you can lean back on if necessary. But yeah, just be wary. You can acknowledge without seeing. The seeing is where you're going to have maybe a bit more difficulty, because once you can see them, they are much more likely to acknowledge you're there. And if you don't want to interact with them directly, that might not be what you're after. Phil, I can attest to that 100%, yes. My entire existence, for like my entire life, has been, oh my god, I'm obsessed with this thing. I'm going to do it all day, every day, for like 2 weeks. And then when people ask me about it again, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Poof, disappeared, never to be heard of again. So where was I? I was here somewhere. I think it jumped again. Okay, I'm gonna have to start speeding up how I'm responding to questions because I know it's gonna jump at some point soon. I can just tell. I told you it was gonna jump, and there we go. Scroll back up. Scrolling. I have no idea where I was. I don't know where I was. I think I was about here. I think I was here. Okay, how do you personally practice hearthcraft without a fire or fireplace? I don't have a working one and would love some ideas. So, for me, hearth witchcraft is about the home. It's just that the term hearth was often used as a central feature because historically it would have been the warmest place in the house. It would have been where people cooked, where they ate, where they cleaned themselves, where they washed themselves. It would have been where they all warmed themselves up after getting inside and where conversations happened. So for me, the hearth is the metaphorical heart of the home. Now I work with the fire element, and that is the aspect that I will include into my practice. So I will work a lot of candle magic. A lot of you will know that. I work a lot of candle magic, and that's because I'm a hearth witch, and this is my substitute for a fireplace. So I will use a lot of candles in my rituals. I will also use a lot of cauldrons in my rituals, because these are two features that are really commonplace. So obviously the cauldron was used to cook in historically, and now it's used as a symbolic representation of transformation and change. And that's essentially what cooking is. It's transformation magic. You're transforming things that are maybe not edible to things that are definitely edible and absolutely delicious. So those are the two things that I will draw into my practice from hearth witchcraft. But for me, it's not so much about, I don't have a fireplace, I can't do it. It's more, what does the hearth represent? The hearth represents the people that I care about. It represents the house that I live in. It represents the spirits that are within the house. It represents me, because I am part of the house, if anything. I mean, I don't leave it very often, so I'm basically part of the house. And so for me, hearth witchcraft is about using your magic to aid the things that surround your hearth. You know, whether that's an actual fireplace or a metaphorical fireplace, either way works. And that could be incorporating green witchcraft and kitchen witchcraft. It could be using charms and talismans. Like, it all fits in that way. And then I also do work with hearth deities, like Ceridwen being a goddess of transformation and the cauldron of knowledge. So the cauldron ties in there. And then you also have Bridget being a goddess of fire and the hearth goddess of Ireland. So those are really how I work it all together. And I think for a lot of people today, I mean, I live in an old house, but there are no longer any fireplaces, because that's what people do with old houses. They take out all of the original features, and it makes me unreasonably angry. But a lot of people, especially if they live in a new home, are not going to have a fireplace necessarily. So don't think that you can't be a hearth witch just because you don't have a fireplace. And that's to anyone who's interested in it, because you definitely can. The fireplace is optional. Anyway, I was here somewhere. Here we go. But isn't it better to acknowledge... okay, right. Sorry, I jumped the gun there. So this is in regard to the fairy question from a few minutes ago. But isn't it better to acknowledge their presence than ignoring the fae? Wouldn't that be more rude? No, not necessarily. Because if you can't see the fae, you're not ignoring them. You don't know that they're there. So, like, if you aren't actively trying to see them, unless they're literally moving things and stealing things in your home, you aren't necessarily ignoring them, because they aren't trying to get your attention, and you can't see that they're trying to get your attention at all. So, obviously, acknowledge when something is happening and they're actively gaining your attention. But the fair folk more often than not assume that no one can see them, because most people don't bother to form that connection, to open that door to be able to see them. So they go about their interactions essentially saying that, you know, I'm not going to bother with them, they can't see me. But once you can see them, your behavior then changes, because all of a sudden you are watching them as they're moving. All of a sudden you are watching them do what they're doing. And no one likes that feeling of being watched. So then they start interacting with you more. And then if you do start ignoring them, then it's an obvious ignoring. Do you know what I mean? So, like, unless they're actively, like, trying to mess with things in your home, you aren't really ignoring them, because they aren't So I'm trying to get rid of this stupid bot and I cannot click anything. Bye. I have to deal with these bots like 100 times a day. Sorry, anyway. You aren't necessarily ignoring them because they aren't really acknowledging you and you're not acknowledging them. So, yeah, that's kind of the best way I can describe that one, I think. Sorry, I got distracted halfway through by bots. I try to get rid of the bots as quick as I can because, like, no one wants to be dealing with bots. Especially not on a live stream because they just clog up all of the live stream. Okay, where? I think I was about here. Someone has a kitty cat as their profile photo. I love a good kitty cat. Whoa, that's not what I meant. I meant an actual cat, like a furry animal that goes meow. Okay, I don't want anyone. Taking that the wrong way, because I know people do. I say things sometimes and people are like, I'm like, no, not what I meant. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah. No, you know what, Phil? Sometimes it's not just me, okay? I get some obscure comments and I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I rewatch the video and I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Yeah, okay. How long do you celebrate the Yule/winter solstice? So for me, I will typically celebrate it from like the 15th of December. That's what month we're in. The 15th of December till kind of like mid-January. And I know that sounds like a really long time, but for me, that's really the Yule season. And that's when it starts getting really cold and it's just, oh, it's all cozy. So I typically go from like the 15th of December to the 15th of January. But yeah, then I'll change it out for Imbolc. Otherwise, I end up kind of falling behind on that. So I'll typically celebrate it till I have to change the altar again, and then I'll switch the altar into something else, and then I'll celebrate a different Sabbat and then go from there. Even on like Sabbats that have set dates like Samhain, I will still celebrate it for like a good month before I change it out. So I cannot use my words today. Like, oh boy, words not working. Actually, you know what? What is it that Evan and Caitlin say? Words are hard. Yeah, they are. Words are really hard. Are you able to create a test dummy like a servitor to practice baneful magic? I'd rather know how to practice it before I need to, but don't exactly know how to go about doing it. Actually, that is a really good idea. So servitors can be essentially programmed or created for any number of different things. And one thing is as kind of an energetic dummy. So it's important to remember here, I wouldn't use actual spirits for this because they are entities in their own right. A servitor, a thought form, a tulpa, they're all kind of different words for the same thing, is a man-made spirit. And it's something that you've created. So it does not exist without your energy. So essentially you can create a separate energy form from yourself that you essentially have created for the purpose of practicing your magic on, whether that is for positive or for negative, whatever it is. As is mentioned here, it's often good to know that you can do something before you have to do it. So you can program or energize your servitor for the specific purpose of being an energy absorber. So by this, it is feeding on the energy that you give it via spells and rituals that are targeted at it. That way, the servitor continues to remain present because you're energizing it, and you get to practice your magical practice while targeting that servitor instead of people, essentially, instead of people. So that is a good option, and I would typically recommend that people do practice things, not necessarily say a certain spell or ritual necessarily, but like at least the basic components of it, you know, the centering, the grounding, the energy work. Practice that so that when you need to do a ritual, it's fairly easy to put it all together and then direct it out. Is it possible to attract luck? Yes. It is, definitely. The one thing I will say in my experience, and of course it is only my experience, as is everything on this channel, it's going to act a little bit like a pendulum. So you can get good luck to you, like you can draw it in, but do remember that it's usually going to balance itself out again at some point. Now, bad luck doesn't mean disastrous things. Bad luck just means, dropping your favorite bowl or, stubbing your toe on a door. That's bad luck. I've had some people try to tell me that, like, bad luck is things that it really isn't. You get to a point where bad luck is no longer bad luck, it's people being dicks. But usually the pendulum is going to balance itself out. So you can do good luck workings, and there's so many out there. You can adapt so many things. You've got candle spells, you have petitions, you have pouches and dolls and all of these different things. Just bear in mind that it's probably going to balance itself out at some point. So it's just literally a balancing act of figuring out where you want that good luck and in which specific areas of your life, and accepting that it isn't necessarily going to be in all areas. And you might find that in some areas of your life, you have a little bit of bad luck for a while, but then it'll balance itself out again. Ooh, just while I'm getting them, do you still have a PO box? I do. In regard to PO boxes, I've had some people send like spell requests, like for me to cast spells via letters. I don't do spell work and ritual for other people. If I were to open that up, I'd end up with like 1,000 letters in my PO box, and I don't have the time to be able to do that, I'm afraid. I do still have a PO box. If you would like to contact me for that, feel free to send me a message on Instagram and I will get back to you on there. But yeah, I've just been getting people sending me lots of spell requests via letters, and I'm starting to get a lot of strange looks from the people who run the PO box. And also I just don't have the time and the energy to be able to do spells for hundreds of different people. So I'm really sorry, but yeah, I've never done spells. Just want to say that. Never done spells for other people. I just want to say that now because I've been meaning to put it somewhere, and this is the perfect opportunity. Okay, where was I? I think it was here. Oh, here we go. What should I do or think when a spell hasn't worked the way you think it would? It's made me upset because I feel other spells I have done have caused difficult outcomes. Oh, this is a really good one. So, in terms of this, I have done a video on spell backfire, which could be a good video for you to watch if you haven't already. But in regards to this, it's often... Don't beat yourself up over it to start off with, because I know that is an easy thing that you can fall into. I know that pretty much everyone that's practiced magic has done this at some point, where you start like second guessing yourself and doubting everything, and oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. It's gone now, it's done. All we can do now is just think about going forwards. So often when a spell hasn't worked in the way that it should, it's sometimes caused by a few different things. So firstly, it's because it's a very vague outcome. So what will typically happen with energy... Wow. All of my words just got jumbled up then. What will typically happen with energy, and we see it with lightning, for instance, is it will always take the easiest path. Now, that path isn't necessarily the one that you want it to take. So you have to make sure that you take out all of the loopholes, or as many as you can, to get that working, flowing in the direction you want it to. Because what will often happen is if you just say, for instance, I would like more money. That's it. And you just let that out there. You might have wanted, say, a promotion, or you might have wanted a raise, or, a little bit of positive windfall to come into your life. What might actually happen is that your car gets hit by a van, and then you get money from the insurance company, and you don't have a car, but now you've got more money. And it's not necessarily that you did the spell wrong. It's not that the spell went wrong at all. It's just that the energy took what it perceived to be the simplest and quickest route. And that's why it's really important to be kind of specific with your spells. You don't want to be so specific that you end up essentially shooting yourself in the foot. So, for instance, if you're trying to make friends, you don't want to be saying, I want to be friends with someone who is 5'8", has blue eyes, has red hair, dresses in this style, likes this music, because that's really like That's narrowing your options in. But if you were to say that you would like to make friends with like-minded people that are good for you, then that narrows it in, so it means that you're finding the right people that you want to connect with. If you're doing a money spell and you want to raise, try to word it so that it is targeted on your job and improving your current job, and that way it's not going to end up with you being let go with a bunch of money. Instead, it's going to be you improving your career and moving upwards in your business and those kind of things. So that's one option that you can take. The other is that it could be that other energies are interfering with your magical practice. So this is why it can be good to do a reading, to see if there's anything else around, to do some energy sensing, and to maybe try working with protection and energy circle casting before you do your rituals. That way you can ensure that all of your energy is what's going into that working and it's not being interfered by other people or other spirits and energies. And also make sure that your tools are cleansed so that you know that what you're working with isn't interfering with your magical practice. So those are just a few options. There are obviously many, many more reasons why this could happen, but those are usually the ones that I find occur most frequently. And sometimes it's things that we don't even notice that we're doing. You know, we might have the best intentions going into a spell, but then after the fact, when we look back on it, we go, oh, that might have been a bit vague. So if you can recognize that, if that is the case, then just change it going forwards and you probably will find a big shift in how your spells manifest. Wow. Words. Lots of words. Speaking of TV, have you watched the show Wednesday? I watched it and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I love how witchy it is though. I have been watching it. I haven't finished it yet though. I still have like a couple of episodes left. I like it. The one thing I can say about it is I'm not sure how well it's going to age. Because like I will still watch the Addams Family from the 90s. I love that show. Well, not show. I love that movie series, you know, the couple of movies that they did. That was great. And it aged so well because like there's not really anything in it that says, well, I mean, okay, some bits of it didn't age so well. Other bits aged all right though. And you can watch it and you can go, oh, I can imagine this happening today. You know, like it's quite Edwardian in a way anyway. But when I watched the new one, they just kept making TikTok references. And I'm sitting here going, this is going to age awfully. Like, in a few years, we're going to be like, what are they talking about? So, like, it's a really good show, but enjoying it. I like the fact that they've made Wednesday kind of a bit more witchy, but it's going to age like rotting meat, I think. And that's a real shame, honestly. Right, I'm trying to figure out where I was. Oh, here we go. This is an interesting one. I've befriended a mated pair of crows as of late. On occasion, they would leave a feather in my yard, which I collect. Any suggestions on what I can do with crow feathers? So I'm not entirely well versed in crow associations and mythology, but I know that there are many deities that crows are associated with, so if you are interested in working with deities, that could be a good option. I know that they are very, very intelligent, so you could be using crow feathers for workings to do with wisdom, to do with memory and focus. You can also use them as a sign of change, because crow feathers, at least in my practice, is usually a sign of things are going to change. So like transformative magic and often protection magic as well. The idea of bonds as well could be a good option because they are a bonded pair. You could use that connection and that association in your spellwork and ritual. And then obviously you've got the idea, so I keep saying obviously, it might not be obvious, is that you have that air element association as well. So you can work with that as well. Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, for relationship and love workings, that's a really good one. So yeah, lots of options there. And ultimately, it also depends on how you connect with them as a pair as well, because you know exactly where these feathers are coming from, which is something that most people won't have. So if you know how they interact with each other, how they interact with their surroundings, how they interact with you, you can then use that in your spell work and ritual. Okay, Where was I? I was here somewhere. Did you read Mastering Magic by Matt Oren? It's his new book. If yes, did you like it? I know you were a fan of the previous book, Psychic Witch. I actually haven't read it yet. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, what? But you loved the first book. I did love the first book. I will read it. It's just, I've been down to Glastonbury twice this year, which is something that I usually don't do. So I went to Glastonbury twice. I have a video coming out next week on the books and the items that I got from Glastonbury. So keep a lookout in your subscription box for that. If you're not subscribed, please do, because I post videos every single week. Sorry, little self-plug there. But I got quite a lot of books when I was in Glastonbury, and I've had to kind of say, okay, we need to read these first. So I am going to read those ones and then buy new books. I think that is the plan. Oh my god, is it daytime over there? It's not. It is currently pitch black and 8:30 p.m. The reason I'm glowing is because I am pasty. If I dim the light that's next to me anymore, everything kind of goes into darkness behind me. So unfortunately, we have to deal with the pasty glow that is going on here. There's not much I can do with the lighting. I've spent like 20 minutes earlier messing with the lighting, and this is as good as it's gonna get. So yeah, it's not quite the same lighting as my main videos, but yeah, Hearth Ghost. Exactly. I basically become a translucent a translucent ghost and start to glow in bright lighting, unfortunately. One of the many reasons why I didn't get into theatre. And also I'm terrified of being on stage and having people look at me. And I know that's ironic given the fact that all of you are looking at me right now, but at least I can't see you. Okay, where was I? I think I was a William Tell Overture. Is that what it is? Wait. William Tell Overture, and then I've got another one saying Allegro by Mozart. I'm going to have to look both of these up later because I've had that song in my head for months. As any of you who've been on the live stream for a while will know, I'm always humming that one. I'm using that glowst. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely am glowsting. Definitely glowsting right now. Did I miss the Winnie the Pooh theme song? No, it hasn't come up yet, but it inevitably will. It's bound to happen. Right, I'm going to try and figure out where I was up here. Ooh, I hope I can catch some of the winter solstice from Stonehenge tomorrow morning, even if it's virtually. I'm curious, is anyone else going to wake up and watch that tomorrow? I know some of you don't have to wake up, it's just in your time zone. I am desperately going to try and wake up at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. to watch the live stream tomorrow at Stonehenge, and guarantee it will be cloudy. It was cloudy last year. If it's cloudy and you want to watch it, then try Newgrange in Ireland. They also do a live stream, and that one is sometimes not as cloudy. I'm going to try and turn this down because now that it's been acknowledged that I am literally glowing like a neon light, I feel like I need to turn it down. See, like, is that better or worse? Because now it kind of looks like I'm just sitting in a dark room with a Christmas tree on. I'm not sure if that's better or worse. Looks better. Is that a bit better? I think I'm just going to put the remote down and just say, looks normal, room isn't too dark. I think it might just be my screen. Okay, I apologize for the last hour of everyone just being blinded by me literally glowing like, yeah. Thank you, Iz. It means a lot. Lighting, damn, it's like, it's the hardest. I can never get the lighting right. It's the hardest thing. Okay, where was I? Oh, can you recommend a good book about bogarts? I Can't specifically recommend a book specifically about boggarts, but did I move it? God damn it, I moved the book. Where did I put it? I don't know. I'm sorry. There was a video in the last live stream. No, there wasn't a video. There was a book in the last live stream. I was asked this specific question, and in that book had an encyclopedia of fae folk in the back. If anyone can remember the name of that book, I would thoroughly appreciate it. I will see if I can. I think it might be on my sofa. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to grab that. But I am desperately trying in 2023, and you're all going to have to hold me to this. I'm going to try and do the fairy book that I said I was going to do in 2018. I know. Shocker. Yeah, I wrote all of the notes for the fairy book and then like the book video, and then I proceeded to immediately lose all of the notes. So now I have to reread all 15 books on fairy witchcraft so that I can redo the video. So that is my plan for this coming year. So that book will be in that video when I finally got round to reading all of them, because reading 15 books on the same subject, it gets a little tedious. Oh, we have another song. So this one is The Four Seasons by Vivaldi. I'm going to have to figure out which one it is. It's got to be one of them, right? It has to be one of them. So yeah, I think they're in the British Goblins book. They probably are mentioned in the British Goblins book. There was specifically one book though where it had an encyclopedia at the back of it. But if I can find it, I need to start doing? I need to start posting the witchcraft book that I'm currently reading on my Instagram. That actually might be a really good idea. Why have I never thought to do that before? Because then you can like keep up with me if you want to read the same books as me. Yeah, anyway, that's an option. So I could post it on there because I'm pretty certain that it's in the other room. And I don't have it in here. Okay, anyway, regardless. I'm going on about a book that I don't have access to right now. I've got to stop with that song. It's driving me insane now. I nearly did it again. Oh, I need to like mute myself sometimes. Ooh, could you talk more about dream magic? Is it only for Yule where you can have dreams? Like predictive dreams. I'm so interested in that subject. So it's definitely not just something that you can do at Yule. Ooh, yes, please post the books. Yes, books. Okay, I will start doing that then. Sorry, tangent, my brain is fried. I'll start, what was I saying? I will start posting the books that I'm reading currently, like the witchcraft books, on Instagram, on my stories. Maybe even like in the feed. That's the word I was after. And then you can kind of keep up with me on there because I'm currently reading a bunch of fairy books, so I'll like post them as I'm reading them so you can see which ones I'm looking at. Just remember though, if I've posted it, it doesn't mean I like it. So it's because I'm currently reading it. Anyway, dream magic. So it's not something that you can only do at Yule. It's just quite commonplace to do at Yule. And I think that might largely be because the nights are long, they're dark, they're often quite quiet. And so it gives people an opportunity to fall into a deeper sleep, and they also have more time to remember and to think about their dreams. So dream magic is something you can do all year round, but it's really commonplace to do it around Yule if you don't normally do it. So dream magic can cover a whole bunch of different things, everything from predictive dreams. This is something that you can develop over time, but a lot of people will have it permanently. It's something that they'll always experience. You can also have dreams that show insights into things that are bothering you. It's an expression of our inner world, essentially, comes out in our dreams. And if we can look into and pick apart our dreams, then it's a great way of understanding ourselves better. It's a place where servitors, familiars, spirit guides, ancestors, deities can interact with us in a dream space. it's often easier for them to connect with us when we are essentially out of it, because we're not fighting against their interactions. We're more accepting to having these spirit interactions and deity interactions as well. So you'll often find that you can ask a question, and then during the night, either your subconscious or your spirit guides, your familiars, your deities may answer you in that dream. If you are connecting with a deity, you can find that they come through to you in dreams. The same applies to familiars as well. You also have dream magic, where you can cast spells and rituals in your dreams. I also will often have information given to me in dreams. So if I have something I want to learn about, or if there's even a topic that I never even thought of learning about, but I have a spirit that will come to me in my dreams and they will give me information on that specific topic that I never would have thought of before, and then I can incorporate it into my practice. You then also have dream magic, as in like interacting with other people via dreams as well. So there's a huge extent of things you can do with dream magic. It's a massive topic. And now is a really good time to... What is wrong with me tonight? Now is a really good time to start working with dreams if you haven't already. Oh, my brain is so fried. I think it's because I'm trying to read the chat as I'm talking. And that's a bad idea. That's really, really bad. Oh my goodness, I did not see... I'm trying to read the chat and I even missed this. Thank you so much, Bresky. Thank you so much. Happy Yule. Thank you for all your awesome work and content this year. And thank you so much for being an amazing mod this year. Like, I genuinely don't think I could do the streams without having all of my mods on here. And so thank you so much for everything that you do. And I hope you have an amazing Yule, an amazing Christmas, or anything else that you celebrate. Yeah, I go awkward when I don't know what else to say. But thank you so much. But I'm gonna have to go back up again. I'm starting to wonder how many hours is considered a short live stream. Oh, like 2 or 3. Considering my live streams used to be 6 to 7 hours, 2 to 3 is that's pretty short, right? That's pretty fine. Do. Okay, a few of these I have already answered, so if I'm skipping your question, it's probably because I've already answered it once or twice in the stream already. Is that a new picture on the wall next to your tree? Oh, you mean the butterflies? Yeah, that's actually not new. It's just not usually in video frame. So like a lot of my long time followers will have seen it before, because I used to film actually like facing that wall so you could see everything behind me. And yeah, those are antique butterflies that I got from it wasn't like a car boot sale, but it kind of was. Like people were just like selling random shit from their houses, and I found this, and it's from like the actual butterflies are a couple of 100 years old. The frame is obviously much newer, so yeah, it's been up there for ages. It's just usually it's kind of like cropped out of video shot. I think it's because I really hastily like move things around. Like you can still see this little nub here. That is from my other tripod that I couldn't get entirely out of shot. So you just have like a little stick just sticking out of the side of the stream. The screen on stream. I mean, I suppose either would have worked. Where was I? I'm trying really hard not to break into that piece of music again, and it's taking all of my focus. It's taking all of my focus not to do it. Where was I? I'm here somewhere. Oh, I've never had anything strange happen in my life, so there is nothing to acknowledge in regards to seeing spirits that are around. Help, I really want to see, feel, smell, etc. of spirits. So, in which case, if you can't start with acknowledging, start with maybe requesting. So you can simply outwardly state that you are wanting to interact with spirits. And you don't have to do this necessarily at home, but you can do this out and about. You know, you can do this in graveyards. Graveyards are actually, a lot of people get really freaked out by graveyards, but they're probably one of the most peaceful places to interact with spirits, because most of the spirits that are there are often quite chill. They're like fine. Because if you're a spirit and you want to be disrupting people, a graveyard is probably the worst place to be, because there's like no one living there. So graveyards are a good place to start, and I've had some phenomenal, if not incredibly unnerving, spirit encounters in graveyards. So that could be a good option, you know, go out there. I'd say do have some form of protection, even if that's just like a sigil drawn on you in like eyeliner pen or some kind of body safe ink or something. And then when you're out there, you know, just say like, I'm open to interacting with any spirits who would like to communicate with me. If you would like to interact with me, please do so now. And then you can also set some boundaries. So, you know, say, you know, if you could show yourself to me, or if I can hear you, or if you can move something around me, like make some specifics here, because if you aren't used to spirits touching you, that's weird as hell. So just bear that in mind. And then when you come back, simply walk a different way than you came, or drive a different way than you came. And then when you get in, have a shower, wash any kind of stagnant energy off you again, and then go back to that way. And it doesn't have to be in a graveyard. It can be going to a local park, because then you have spirits that are maybe not human in nature. You know, you might have nature spirits, you might have fair folk, you might have plant spirits, and be able to go out and about and do that. That way you're not necessarily relying on having a spirit at your home. Now, it's a big thing to say that you aren't necessarily going to interact with something or see something every single time. And even people who actively see spirits won't necessarily see something every single time. So it's a good idea to take like a little notebook and write down anything. And it doesn't have to be something that's very obviously a spirit. It could be, you know, it was a very, very still day, but something fell over, or something creaked, or something fell, or something rolled at me, you know, those kind of things. Any observation is better than none. It could be the wind blowing in a completely different direction than it was a few seconds ago, or, you know, those kind of things. Just note them down. Doesn't matter how vague and uninteresting they might be. Note them down in like a little pocket notebook or something, even just on your phone, and then keep doing it and just keep trying. And over time, you might find that you get more interactions, and maybe you start be able to acknowledge more, see more, hear more, smell more, and it kind of goes from there. And also, not everyone is going to experience spirits in the same way. So some people might hear talking and whispering when there's no one there. This is something that I personally get quite a lot, is that whole like, why can I hear music? Take headphones out. There is no music. Put headphones in. There is no music. And then like 10 minutes later, the music starts again. Or you might be able to smell. So you might smell perfume that you've never smelled before, or cologne, or even like alcohol, or even horrible smells. So just bear that in mind. It's not always going to be nice. Or you might see things, you know, these are all different ways that they might come to you, but request it. Because at least then you know that if there's any spirits around, they're kind of starting, that they're going, oh, you want to interact with us. Okay, now that's a different story, because before we didn't know if you could even interact with us. And now they can start thinking, actually, you know, I can interact with you, and I will. I'm missing a whole bunch of chat, I know that. Oh, this is the one I was missing. Oh my goodness, Megan, I'm so sorry I didn't see this. Happy Yule to you. I hope that your last few markets were really, really good, and that you can now just chill. Because we've only got like 4 days till Christmas. We can chill now. So thank you so much. And meeting you was absolutely lovely. And oh my goodness, Brigid candle. Apple strudel is now my favourite fragrance. That candle is phenomenal. If anyone is in the UK and you haven't checked out the Cozy Witch, please do. Her candles are fucking amazing. And lovely as well. One of the loveliest people you could ever meet. I managed to butcher the word people. Typical. So yes, thank you so much. Where was I? Oh, it jumped again. You have to scroll back up again now. I was about here. I think I was about here. Oh, interesting. What are some good materials for self-replicating magical batteries? What I have in mind is something that would generate its own power once I charge it with my own energy. Oh, that's an interesting one. So are we talking like materials as in like the things that we make it from? Because, I mean, there's quite a few options there. It really all depends on whether you want to be connecting it to something else. So like you kind of kickstart it, and then it will keep cycling its own energy around. So it just keeps building, kind of like a car engine. You know, you jumpstart a car engine and then just running the engine keeps the battery powered. Because in which case then, it could be something as simple as quartz. I mean, there's a reason quartz is used in quartz watches. They have a pulse. Where is that music coming from? Can you hear that? Am I going nuts? I think someone just walked past with a speaker attached to them. Okay, anyway. I mean, there's... Where was I? Quartz. There's a reason that quartz batteries... Quartz is used in watches. It keeps a pulse, so it keeps time. It has its own, like, little heartbeat. So that could be good because you kickstart it, and then it has that energy to maintain that pulse, which then maintains that energy. You also have something like moonstone, for instance, or anything that's associated with the moon that you can then link to that lunar energy so that every full moon it charges, and then the rest of the cycle you can use it, and then every full moon it charges. You can have something that's outside and it is actively drawing energy from the sun. So as the sun rises and is in the sky, it is charging that battery. And then every night it is storing that energy so that you can use it. And then essentially once you've kickstarted it and connected it up, you can then just keep using that energy and it's constantly going to be replenishing itself. The only thing that's really going to stop it is a ridiculously cloudy day. Or, you know, if you live in like crazy northern hemisphere and you don't have sunlight for 6 months of the year, you know, like Spellwork. But generally that's a good thing that you can do. And then in the summer, it's essentially supercharged. Well, if you're in the northern hemisphere, if you're in the southern hemisphere, then in winter it will be supercharged. Anyway, whenever you get the most sun, it's essentially supercharged. You can then funnel the excess energy off into other objects and items. Portland, cloudy. Okay, so I think Portland's cloudy anyway. Is Portland cloudy? I think Portland's cloudy anyway. So that is something else that you could do though. You could have something outside and you are linking it to the water element. So if you have water on your property, or if it rains a lot, or if you're in an area that gets a lot of water flowing through, then you can have an object that's outside and it draws its energy off rainfall. So every time it rains, it draws in that energy and then you can use it when it's not raining and it's going to store it. So really, when it comes to like magical batteries, having something that's outside is incredibly useful because you can use that external energy, whether that is storms, whether that's solar energy, that could be lunar energy, it could be specific cosmic events if you want something that's like really going to pack a punch. It can be metal or it can be quartz. I would typically use... That guy was driving like ridiculously fast. And I would typically use quartz because it's easily accessible. You can get it from garden centers. It has that innate energy about it. And you can leave it outside and people usually don't question it because quartz is so commonly found in gravel driveways and those kind of things. I really hope that at least something in that is going to be useful. I hope so. Without knowing specifically the situation, I have to be kind of like vague and general, but I'm hoping that helps. And I'm hoping that helps anyone else who's interested in magical batteries as well, because I've gone through magical batteries and I get asked a lot about books. Most of the information I have on magical batteries comes from my own magical practice. It's just trial and error. It's just like 15 years of just trial and error. So I'm hoping that any of this is useful because like it's not really talked about all that much, which is a shame. Oh, I would like to make protection bottles for family. Should I cast a circle? If you feel so inclined, I would. Yeah, because then especially if you're making protection bottles, you want to funnel all of that energy into that bottle. You don't want it to dissipate. So casting that circle is going to stop interference. It's also going to maintain the energy inside that space, so you can funnel it all into those bottles. So if you do cast circles and you feel so inclined, this would be a really good working to cast circles. Agreed. Leave the damn fireplace alone. That's in relation to me saying that everyone renovating a house rips out the original features. Oh, I hate it. I actually have got to the point where I can't watch like house renovation shows because they go into like an 18th century cottage. They rip out all of the original features and then they just like plasterboard it and put new stuff in there. And I'm just sitting there going, if you want a new house, buy a new house. If you want an old house, buy an old house. Why are you spending a fortune on an old house to make it look like a new one? Just buy a new, they're cheaper just to buy a new one. Anyway, tangent. I'll get back to answering actual questions now. Ooh, here we go. So this one is about fae folk. When they do get your attention by hiding things, what reaction do they want? How does one tell? So a lot of the time, it's going to depend on who they are and like where they live is kind of the best way I can describe it. So what get off me. So one of the main reasons why fae folk may hide things is with house spirits. It's because something has happened or something has been done that they aren't happy with. So if it's a house spirit, it's because something that belongs to them has been moved. So you might find that you've done a tidy up and you found like a leaf or an acorn or a stone or a stick or something. And you're like, what is this doing in my house? Get out of my house. And you toss it out. And then they essentially are telling you like, hey, you messed with my stuff. I'm going to mess with your stuff. And it's more of like a, you know, I'm going to do the same to you if you keep doing it to me kind of a thing. It's like a warning thing in a way. You'll often find that certain house spirits, particularly things like brownies, will not be happy if your house is messy, which is why brownies don't really stick around for very long in my house. I have a messy brain, messy house. That's how this works. So if, for instance, you have made a mess and they're used to it being really, really clean, they might start hiding things, taking things, putting them in weird places to say like, hey, it's not just you that lives here, like fix this. Sometimes it can be that you don't leave out an offering that you said you were going to leave out. This is mainly when you are working with them. So if you say that you're going to be leaving out a little thimble of milk or something and you don't do it, then they're going to get pissed because of course they are. You said you were going to do something and you didn't do it. Like they're going to get angry about that. So those are all reasons why brownies, like house spirits. Now, not all house spirits are brownies, but in England and Ireland and Wales and Scotland, they're usually called like brownies or something similar. When you have fae in general, though, it can be for a few reasons. So a lot of fae like mischief, and this is where the stories come from of fairies stealing things and all that. They often like causing a little bit of chaos. And it's not all fae, but a lot of fae like mischief, they like chaos, they like confusion. This is why things like being pixie-led are really commonplace. This is where fae folk will distract you, turn you around, lead you deeper into the forest, into the marshland, into the bog, where a lot of people would meet an untimely fate. This would often be done with like fairy lights, and will-o'-wisps is really common for this, and they will essentially try to lead you off course. This can also be with voices and things like that. So a lot of fae really like mischief. And so if you have a fae in your house that isn't a house fae, but they really like stealing your things, especially if it's things like car keys, house keys, a single earring, a wedding ring, things that are probably really important to you, then that's probably because they are trying to have a little bit of fun. This is their version of fun and entertainment. And in that, you might want to say, okay, you've had your fun. Here is an offering. Please stop moving my things. And then see what happens. Sometimes just that acknowledgement is like, okay, I've had my fun now. So the problem with it is it very much depends person to person and fae to fae. So you will have some fae where if you ignore them, they will get bored and they will leave you alone. So that's typically the first thing to do if you think it's a mischievous fae. If you think it's a mischievous fae, start by ignoring it. Because what will often happen is they will get bored. Oh, they're not reacting to me. I'll move on to something else. And someone else, usually. If ignoring them isn't making it better, it's actually making it worse, try just saying, okay, can I have my stuff back? I will give you an offering on this one occasion if you give my stuff back. And then you might find that they will just move on and disappear. If they don't, protections, cleansings, maybe even banishings if necessary, to just get them out of your house. If it is a house fae, it's then important to think about what you might have done. Can you recall moving anything, touching anything, disrupting anything? Do you remember forgetting to leave an offering? And then do what you can to kind of patch that up, get them a replacement of that thing that they really liked that you threw out, or clean that space that you know that they reside in, or leave them an offering in replacement for the one that you missed, and then don't miss one again, moving forward. So those are all kind of options. It does very much vary though on the fae. And that's where it can get kind of tricky because no two fae are the same. Okay, next one. Can you connect with a sibling that was never born? I mean, yes, I'd say so. Much like how you can connect with lots of different spirits. So in this, you would want to be connecting with their connection to you. So you probably wouldn't be able to use a name. I think I remember mentioning that they sadly never were given a name. Yeah. So instead of going for names, you would want to be going for that connection that you have with them. Like, how does that bond feel to you? Can you pull on that bond? Can you tug that bond? And this is what a lot of people will do with familial relationships when people say, I knew something bad had happened before anyone told me. I could just feel it. It's that connection that never goes away with like close friends, with family, with acquaintances. Even if you're really close and, something has brought you together, you have that connection. And that's what cord cutting rituals are for, to break that connection. But if you haven't broken that connection, you have nothing else to go off. Try tugging on that energetic cord a little bit. And that way you can start having that energetic connection that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise through other means. So it's probably the best advice I can give. You can do that via meditation. You can do that before you go to sleep so that you can reach out to them. You can do that with just energy work while sitting quietly. There's lots of options, but it's probably the best bet is tugging on that energetic cord a little bit. Okay, do you have any advice for meditating / astral projection with aphantasia? So I get this question every live stream. The first thing I want to say is that astral projection isn't something that happens in your mind. So you don't need to be able to visualize to astral project, because astral projection isn't a mental image. You are externalizing your energy. So your astral body is separating from your physical body to traverse the astral plane or the spiritual planes. It's not something that you are visualizing in your mind. So even if you can't visualize, you can astral project, because they are not the same thing. They're very, very different. And generally, if you've experienced astral projection, it's obviously very different to anything else. I hope that makes sense. So it's one of those where if you've never experienced it, you might not notice the difference. But especially for people who can't visualize, it's very obvious. So with meditation, you don't need to be able to visualize. You don't need guided meditations. Guided meditations is one way of doing it. That's where you follow a verbal meditation that someone is leading you down and you form images in your mind. You don't need to be able to visualize to meditate. You just probably won't be able to do guided visualizations quite as well. Instead, you would want to be focusing on your breathing. Focus on catching that in-between breath. I have a video on how to undertake mind calming, which is all about meditating, and it has a bunch of different options in it. So you can focus on your breath and how it feels, whether that's counting your breath, whether that's catching the in-between breaths. You can also focus on a specific question that you have in mind and really focus on that question. You don't need any images in order to do that. So you might have to do things slightly differently when it comes to meditation, but with astral projection, you should have no problem. because you're not creating images in your mind's eye. You are experiencing things outside of your body because it's an out-of-body experience, but it's a controlled, usually anyway, it's at least a somewhat controlled out-of-body experience. Would you do a video on astral travel? I probably will at some point. I'm trying to find a few good books on astral projection and I'm struggling. I have a few old-ish books. So like I have a few books from like the 60s or 70s, but they're not in print anymore. So I can't recommend them to people because they're not in print. So I'm trying to find a good book on astral projection that I can then like recommend to people. But what I am doing is, I don't know when it's going to be finished. I don't know if it's ever going to be finished. So don't get your hopes up too much for this. But I do have a section in the piece of work that I'm currently writing that does have information about astral projection. So hopefully one day I will finally be able to get that done. Because by golly, it has been months and months and months and years and years and years, and I'm still doing it because I can't focus for anything. Like I just can't focus on anything. Have you read Your Discovery of Witches book yet? It's one of my favorites. I love it so much that I did a dollhouse based on the book. Oh, that's so cool. I actually haven't read it. I sadly have gone down a rabbit hole of Kindle Unlimited fiction. And if anyone has Kindle Unlimited, you know that there are so many books on Kindle Unlimited. And I'm obsessed with it at the minute because like they have a little thing at the bottom where it tells you how long it's going to take you to read the book. And I really appreciate that because I have some books where I started reading them and I'm like, I've been reading this for like 20 hours. I can't keep doing this. And then I give up on it. I'm looking at you, A Court of Silver Flames. I still haven't finished that damn book. And so I kind of fell down a rabbit hole into Kindle Unlimited and I've been like blasting through books. Like any chance I get, I will go through them. So I have the copy of it upstairs and I will eventually get round to it. It's just one of them where Kindle Unlimited is just so easy for me right now because I just find it so simple. So I will get round to it and then I'll have to watch it because I still haven't watched it. I know that people say that it's really good and I will have to give it a go at some point. It's just it's so hard to find because is it a Sky original? Sky is so expensive. I don't know if it's expensive in America as it is in England, but it's so expensive. So I'm going to have to find like DVDs, I think, of it. Now, let's figure out where I was. Where on earth was it? Oh, do you know any of it? I just tried to say that entire sentence in like 3 words. Do you know of any books on elemental magic? I thought you reviewed a book on the subject, but I cannot find it for the life of me. So I haven't got that many books specifically on like all of the elements, but where did I put them? I need to alphabetize my books so bad. Anyway, there's a series which is all about the different magics, elemental magic. So you have one which is fire magic, water magic, earth magic, air magic. They're all individual books. I believe they're by Llewellyn. They're books by Llewellyn. And those are pretty good. Now, it does go into how different traditions around the world will interact with that specific element. So not everything in all of the books is going to be applicable to every single person, but they do have a good overview of working with those elements and how you can adapt it into your own practice. So that could be a good option. And honestly, they're the only books on elemental magic that I've enjoyed. I do have Earth, Air, Fire, Water by Scott Cunningham. Is that what it's called? It's something similar, but Scott Cunningham books are very Wiccan oriented. So just bear that in mind because some books are definitely going to come at it from a very Wiccan approach, whereas others are going to be a little bit more secular. Did you see that someone is making a Winnie the Pooh tarot? That is really cool. I will probably not be adding it into my collection because I will just get so nostalgic that I will not be able to do my readings. Is it possible to combine modern day gods with witchcraft? what kind of gods do you mean by modern day gods? Because, I mean, witchcraft is secular, so you can really combine any religion to an extent, because obviously some traditions within certain religions are going to be very opposed to witchcraft, whereas others are going to be more flexible to it. So because of that, you can really combine any deities and any religious practice in with witchcraft and find some success with it as long as you feel comfortable with it. And that's the most important thing, is that like you feel comfortable with it. Where was I keep losing where I am tonight. I think the chat keeps bouncing around. Do you have the Charmed Book of Shadows replica? I don't, and I honestly don't even really know what it looks like. I watched Charmed so long ago that I know it's big. I know it's big, and I know it's got a triquetra on the front of it, but that is all I know. Oh yes, A Broom at Midnight. Yep, that one is a good book. The 13 Gates of Witchcraft by Spirit Flight by Roger J. Horn. That one is a good book. I always kind of forget that that's that one. My problem with that one is that, I mean, if my memory serves me, it might not. Honestly, my memory is pretty shocking. But it's more about, like, spirit flight, like, historically, isn't it? I might have got this. I might be confusing the books. Because I know that there's a few that are out now that are mostly about spirit flight, as in, like, how they used substances and the historical perceptions of it. So that is a good book. I remember being really good. I just don't know whether I'd use it as a reference for modern day people wanting to actively practice it themselves. I'll have to check over it. The problem with reading so many books is that they all kind of blur together. Like, I take the information that I need out of the book, and then I forget where that information came from. Because if I were to keep all of the information, I would just lose my mind, I think. I think I would just have way too many bits of information in my head, and I just couldn't do that. Oh, a book highlight for Instagram. Yeah, I'll have to do that as well. Sorry, I'm bouncing from conversation to conversation. This was about me putting the books that I'm currently reading on Instagram, and then I'll make like a highlight of all the books that I'm reading, and I'll then actually maybe do another highlight with like the star rating that I would give each book. So you can look at one and see the books that I'm currently reading, and then look at another to see how I liked it. And then go from there, because I know that going forwards, I think I'm going to do more in-depth book reviews on my Patreon for anyone who's following me on Patreon, because they do far better on Patreon than they do on YouTube. YouTube doesn't really like book videos, I've noticed. Does training energy work at Yule have a boost or something like that? Not really. I've personally never experienced a boost in anything like that. Especially when it comes to training energy practice, it's going to be a slow process regardless of when you do it. You might find that you as a person might be more energized at certain times of the year. So for myself, I much prefer the summer. I am like a lizard. I have to be warm permanently. My house is always at like 25 degrees. I don't even know what temperature it is right now. I think it's at least at 20 degrees right now. Otherwise, I'm cold. So for me, I'm more energized in the summer, so I find energy work easier in the summer, and I'll often practice new techniques in the summer season, whereas other people might feel more energized around the winter season and when it's colder, and they can be more comfortable. So it's really going to depend more on that than on any particular Sabbat. How do you recommend learning more about a subject when you don't particularly like reading books? I feel like saying I'm a witch who doesn't like books is blasphemous, but I can't be the only one. You're definitely not the only one, and as Bresky has said, ebooks, podcasts, great options, videos like YouTube videos. You don't even have to look at me or anyone else. You can just like listen to the content. That's a good option as well. And then trial and error. A lot of the times we take the bits of information that we need and then we just test it. See what works, see what doesn't. Everyone's going to be different anyway. So if you can get even a little bit of information from ebooks and from videos and podcasts and stuff, then that's better than nothing at all. And then you can just trial and error it. I gotta get that song out of my head. I need to find anything else. Oh, I remember the pinned butterflies. Yeah, the pinned butterflies up there are a really old feature. Some of you will likely remember I I used to film with my back to the Brigid altar, which some of you might actually have never have seen. Because if you're here from like 2020 onwards, you won't have seen it. But I used to film with my back to the Brigid altar instead of to the bookshelf. So you could always see the butterflies in my videos. But then I figured that the wall was too blank at the bottom. So then I moved to the sofa. And also the sofa was just considerably more comfortable. Okay, I've gotta like zip it on that piece of music. I can lose myself just humming the same bit of music. And like, that's not good. That's annoying. I can do that when I'm by myself because I can just like hum like the same like terrible Christmas song like on repeat. But when other people are around, you're like, oh, okay, I gotta chill on that one. Where was I? Oh, okay, this is an interesting one. So this is a follow-up to a question that was earlier. I cleanse after a long day because they're an empath and I have house protections. Can that be scaring the spirits away? Oh, definitely. I mean, if you have house protections, the whole point of the house protection is to stop energies and spirits from interacting with you. So that's why it can be really tricky and you have to often fine-tune your protections. You'll start with like a basic protection that keeps everything out and then you have to adjust it a little bit to let spirits in that you would like to enter into your space and keep those out that you don't want to enter your space. For me, I tend to work on the principle that if you have good intentions, then you are welcome to pass through, to stay for a while. But if you have negative intentions, stay out of my space. And that way I still have spirits passing through, I still have spirits interacting with me, but only the ones that I'm willing to let into my space, and I will harden those protections again if I get spirits coming through who are negative towards me, and then I will strengthen them again and then adjust them again at a later point. It's constantly like tweaking and fine-tuning. But I mean, if you're doing regular cleanses of your space, of yourself, of your objects and items, and you have house protections up, you're going to find that your space can potentially become a bit of a void. You're not going to have any energy in that space that is not yours, and you're not going to have any spirits in that space because they can't get in, and they're being irritated every time you do a cleanse. So it's a tricky one because there is a balancing act. A lot of people say that you have to cleanse every single week or every day, and I'll be honest, I have never, not once, in all of the years I've lived here, I have never once cleansed my house. And that is like blasphemous to so many practitioners. I know that there's many practitioners on social media and on YouTube who would like ring me out for saying that, but I've never cleansed any room in this house. I've never needed to. Because like the spirits that were already residing here were fine. The protections that I put up were good so that spirits could come and go, but only the ones that I wanted. And so I never needed to. Whereas a lot of people, if they don't want to interact with spirits, it is a really good idea to do protections all of the time and to do a lot of cleanses to kind of cleanse out that space. So it really is just going to depend on your circumstances. If you want more spirit interactions, do some personal cleanses, but not necessarily smoke cleanses, because obviously that smoke dissipates into the rest of the space. So maybe try like shower cleanses, water cleanses, sound cleansing is a good option as well. Maybe just try energy cleansing. Just draw that energy up. Just imagine it all being like a black slime. Think Venom, right? Everyone knows Venom. So think like all of that black gunk that's on your skin, that's come from the day and being outside and being around other people. Just imagine it all being like glooping into one thing and then washing it down the drain as you're washing your hands. And that's a good way of cleansing without disrupting any of the spirits that you might want in your space. So just a balancing act. You just have to tweak the things that you're doing to get the best outcome for you. Oh no, it jumped. Oh dear. I can't have been that far off the bottom, surely. Where is it? I've got to be here somewhere. Okay, there's the Thomas the Tank Engine. That's going to make no sense if you haven't been reading the comments. Oh my goodness, where on earth was I? Oh, when I was a kid, I saw a spirit that felt like my grandfather, but he was just dark. Could it have been him, or do you think it was a shadow or watcher? It could have been a shade. It could have been a spirit that wanted to keep themselves cloaked. So if you had a feeling that it was something you recognized or someone that you recognized, then I'd say you might be right in that, because some spirits choose to not show themselves, especially if you were very young when they passed. It's scary. I mean, for a lot of people, it would be scary. And if you were a child, then the last thing they want is to freak you out, especially if they care about you. So it could well have been your grandfather just not choosing to show themselves in a way that could potentially terrify a small child or confuse the situation even more, because if you have a child that is grieving and then that spirit shows themselves to you, that's going to confuse them, because then, they're telling their parents or they're telling their school friends or school teachers that their grandpa came to them, and everyone knows that the grandfather is gone. It kind of confuses the situation. So a lot of spirits will choose to kind of keep themselves stepped back a little bit, especially when it comes to interacting with children. Ooh. What is your take on metal magic? Do you ever work with metal in your craft? I do, yes. So I work a lot with silver. So a lot of the jewelry that I wear is silver. I mean, for a few reasons. Like, anything that isn't silver in earring form irritates the hell out of me. But when it comes to silver jewelry, I like it because it's good for protection, and I really like it for amplifying my workings. But I will also work with a lot of more what I would consider unrefined metal work. So like, silver jewelry is often very polished, it's very delicately done. I like working with brass and with steel and with iron and these things that are a bit more often in a more rough state, and I'll use those in my practices for different things. I'll often use brass for things like connecting with the earth and with natural energies, like nature energies. And then I'll use iron a lot for protective magic, not necessarily just for its protective properties, but because I find it to be a really strong metal that's really good for that protective strength, and I'll use it that way. So yeah, metals are really useful, and people definitely bypass metals a little bit more than they should. Oh, here we go. I have servitors. I assume that because they're made from my energy, they won't be cleansed away when I do personal cleanses. I have protection servitors, so they are always around me. This is going to depend on how you created them. So if you have given them set goal, the energy that they're going to be feeding off, and you have essentially told them to be there all of the time, then if you do a cleanse, you're not going to get rid of them, because that cleanse is just a little irritation. It's an ant to them. Whereas if you have a servitor and you haven't told it to stay around, and you have a general cleanse, you're essentially saying, well, now I want you to go away. And because you haven't given a countering command that is more deeply ingrained than cleansing, then you can cleanse your own servitors away by accident. And so if you are making servitors, it's a really good idea to kind of include in that this servitor is to stay with me, or to stay in a place regardless of any spiritual cleanses that I do. And only when they are told to step down from that position, or I dismantle them, or there's a set date in their makeup that they have to be dismantled by, only then will they break down. And that way you can avoid having your own servitors cleansed out, because that can happen. And it's something that you have to kind of build into it to make sure that it doesn't. I keep starting to do that same song again, and I'm like, nope, suck it back in again. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Oh, do you have any advice on a stuttering spell or ritual? I know mundane things need to be done, but what can I particularly do with magic? Unfortunately with this, I am not entirely sure. It's because a lot of my workings are done through trial and error. Because I personally don't have any experience with this, I've never had to do any trial and error workings. There may well be workings that you can do alongside mundane things that can really help improve the situation for you or speed up the process, whatever you need. But unfortunately, I don't know of anything specific because I've never personally had to work with this magically. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to find a solution or an aid in your situation that will help you. Unfortunately, I don't really know. I need to figure out where I was. It jumped again. I didn't say it jumped this time, but it jumped. And now I've got to figure out where I was. Oh, I've used the term thought form for created spirit and created spaces, such as for calm like a stream or a beach, for protecting myself from someone's bad energy. Do you have any insights on this? So obviously, as I've mentioned several times during the stream, this is just my experience, right? So for me, that would be more of a mental space rather than a thought form. Mostly because a thought form tends to be sentient in a way, like they are separate from you. They are a part of you. They are energetically linked to you. And they are an energetic replica of an aspect of you. But they exist now outside and separate from you. Whereas a space that you've created for calm or for strength or for anything like that is usually created inside of you. So it's an inner world more than a thought form. At least for me anyway, I would consider them to be inner worlds or inner sacred spaces that I have created within myself that mentally I can go to for that calming environment or that strengthening or that creative environment. And they can't exist separate from me. Like they are inside rather than external. Whereas a thought form, if you don't dismantle a thought form, you can often find that people outside of you have to deal with it once people pass over. And there's been many accounts of thought forms haunting homes because a magical practitioner has not built in a shut off for their thought form. So their thought form essentially is running without them after their death, and it will continue running until someone else shuts it down. So yeah, an interesting question. And actually one I don't think I've ever had before, which is nice, actually, because a lot of questions I do get quite a lot. I don't dislike answering the ones I've got before. It's just, it's different. Oh, nice Christmas tree. Thank you very much. It's not on very much, but it's there. I'm just glad that you can actually see it. It would be an awful shame if I set up the tree and then put it somewhere that you couldn't actually see it. Because this room is so cold, I actually have a heater on behind me. You can't actually see it, and thank goodness that I do, because my feet right now are completely numb. And this room is just very, very cold. So I'm not in here very much. So this is probably the only time this year that this tree is going to be lit. Oh, I gave in. I caved. I'm sorry, I caved. Have you read The Door to Witchcraft by Tonya A. Brown? I've read part of it, and I do think the bit that I've read was pretty well done, actually. If it's the book that I remember, I think it's a black book with a white door on it. And it covers quite a lot of basic principles that I think are really useful. I'll need to finish the entirety of it. I think I got about halfway through. But from what I've read, I liked it. So I'll probably have to get the physical copy of it to really fully dive into it. But yeah. I didn't like A Court of Wings and Ruin or A Court of Frost and Starlight much. Is A Court of Silver Flames any good so far? How do I best describe this? So my favourite books are A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I didn't much like Frost and Starlight. And my least favourite character, and some of you are going to dislike me for saying this, my least favourite character of all of them is Nesta. Or Nessa. I think it's Nesta. I read a name, it's usually wrong. So when I saw this giant book and I was like, oh my god, it's the last one, I need to read it. And I read it partway and I was like, this is all Nesta. I can't stand this character. And the author spends the entire book trying to convince me to like this character that I don't like at all. And then I gave up halfway through. So if you like Nesta, you will probably like the book. If you don't like Nesta, you will probably absolutely hate the book. I have it sitting at the bottom of a book pile down here, and I will finish it. I will at some point, just not now. I honestly tempted to do the audiobook instead because I read the Crescent City, the first Crescent City book, via audiobook, and that was much more manageable because firstly, you can pronounce the names of the characters right, because if the audiobook person gets the names of the characters wrong, then you know they're hard to pronounce names. So like, it was nice getting to do it in like chunks, and I could just like listen to a chapter here or there. Sitting down with a book that's like this thick, it's not for me. I've tried, it's not for me. Oh goodness. Oh, thank you so much, Mel. I hope you have an amazing Yule, winter solstice, Christmas, whatever it is that you celebrate. And thank you for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Oh, here we go. Wait. Yeah, that was the book. This one. I've got a test tomorrow. Any simple magical tips? Oh, good luck for your test tomorrow. It really all depends on the requirements of going in for the test, because obviously different places are going to have different requirements. If you have any rosemary from your cupboard, that could be a really good option. You can just use kitchen rosemary that you can find. I used to use rosemary and thyme for my exams, so I would put them in a little pouch that I'd put in my pocket, or I just sprinkle some in my pockets, and I would have that charged when I went into exams. I've also taken stones that I've energized into exams, and I even have a friend who took a big chunk of malachite into an exam and had it on his desk, because he was like, I am not failing this. And they were okay with it. But obviously it's going to very much depend on the requirements for exams wherever you are. But my biggest piece of advice is don't freak out about it, because freaking out about a test is only going to make it worse. And put some rosemary and some thyme in your pockets, or at least one of them, because those are ones that I found really, really useful for my exams. Two questions. Oh, okay. Where am I? So one of them I know I'm not going to be able to answer. It's not in my realm, so I'm not even going to try. But the other one is, we're buying a house. What should we do before we move in? So when it comes to houses, I'm not going to say that you should just go in and cleanse, which is what a lot of people will say. And that's based on their experiences, obviously. I'd say if you're buying a house, go in and kind of scope out the energy in the place. Do some energy sensing, do a reading, see how it feels to you. Most importantly, see how it feels to you. And also, if you're moving into a space, try spending a night or two in there with no protections, no cleansing, nothing, and see how it feels. Because sometimes you'll find a property feels all nice during the day, but when you're asleep, you'll have bad dreams. You might have prophetic dreams, you might have figures in your dreams, you might see things out the corner of your eye that you don't like, you might get strange feelings. So spend a couple of days and nights in there without doing anything. So no protections, no cleansings, nothing. See how it feels. If it feels happy, bright, light, you feel safe and comfortable in that space, put some protections up. Do some general house protections. This could be warding, this could be using batteries, this could be using witches' bottles or witches' balls or witches' ladders or witches' bells. I've recently loved witches' bells. Anyone who got the last mystery box will also have received some of my witches' bells. And put those on doors, put some like black tourmaline over windowsills and door frames, put some black salt in corners, those kind of basic protection things. and then see how it goes from there. If you move into a space and you find that you feel really uncomfortable, you feel nauseous, you just don't feel right, do some cleansings. I have 2 full videos on cleansings, one for house cleansings with smoke and one house cleansings without. I like using rosemary. That's my personal favorite, is dried rosemary, but you can also use incense that has specifically been made for the purpose of cleansing, or you can use sound, or really lots of other options. You got salt water, those kind of things, sprays, lots of options. So go through the house, give it a good cleanse yourself before you leave, make sure you put up your protections, and then everything will be fine and dandy as long as you maintain those protections, of course. So those are kind of good options, but I say don't just go in guns blazing, so to speak, and cleanse everything, because you might find that there are spirits residing in that house that you might want to keep around. Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Lynette. I really hope it is. Lynette and the doggy is so cute. It was a good choice. Thank you so, so much. So let's see. What is your favorite Christmas movie? My favorite of all time, I saw it last week, it was phenomenal, is The Santa Claus. The one with Tim Allen and he like slowly becomes Santa. That is by far my favorite Christmas movie. I had not seen it in years and I watched it again and I was like, oh my goodness, what if this is awful? Like, what if this is really, really bad and I hate it? Because obviously, like, when you watch something when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then you watch it as an adult and you're like, what am I watching? And I was really worried that I'd watch it again and I'd be like, oh, I hate it. But nope, still just as good. I love the Santa Claus. I know that there's a new series on Disney Plus that's the Santa Claus, and it's like a series, and I'm scared to watch it. Because, like, I don't want it to ruin it. Because, like, Santa Claus 3 was already bad enough. Like, we don't need something worse. What do you think about the Polar Express? I don't like the Polar Express. I know people love it. It's like a cult classic. People love the Polar Express. To me, it's Uncanny Valley. Like, it makes me so uncomfortable. Because, like, the characters look like the actors, but they don't look enough like the actors. And it's, like, high quality animation, but it's not quite right out. No. Does anyone else feel that way? When I watch it, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, ugh, it gives me the ick. If a movie could give me an ick, it is the Polar Express. Yeah, Uncanny Valley, it is. It's just that kind of, like, they're, like, nearly human, but they're not quite. I don't know. People love it, though. Like, most people in my family love the Polar Express and watch it every year. I can't sit through it. What's your favorite movie of all time? Oh, that's a bloomin' hard one. I have lots of movies that I really like. I'm just trying to think of a few that I will watch over and over and over again, like Coraline and the Other Mother. Exactly, like it's that kind of weird, like, ooh, something's not right about this. Yeah, Polar Express is a nope. I feel you there, 100%. Ugh. Like, of all the Christmas movies, like, I can watch Arthur Christmas all day, every day. I love that movie. That's also animated, but it doesn't give me the ick like the Polar Express does. There's just something about it. Favorite movies? I mean, we got to go for Lord of the Rings. It's got to be, like, up there. Like, I could watch those on repeat. I love them. But then you've got, like, I love Man of Steel. I love Superman, though. I've always loved Superman since I was a kid. So, like, I love Man of Steel and I will watch that on repeat. Two Night Stand. If you have never seen Two Night Stand, it is such a funny movie. I love that film. So I have lots of favorite films. They cycle out. I don't really have like one set favorite film. How about The Nightmare Before Christmas? I like The Nightmare Before Christmas. I am not a massive Tim Burton fan though. Like, I love Beetlejuice. Like, that is by far one of my favorite films. I can't believe I didn't mention that. Beetlejuice is by far one of my favorite films. And I love that. And I like Nightmare Before Christmas. But it's not something I would necessarily, like, watch every year. You know, I'll watch it, like, every, like, 5 years. And I'm good with that. You know, whereas, like, Man of Steel, I said it twice. I know I said it twice. I gotta stop saying it. Man of Steel, I literally watched. And it might have been because I wasn't fully paying attention. I watched it, like, 3 times in one day. I had it on in the background and I was just like, 3 times, oh well, it'll be a fun night anyway, let's put it that way. If he shows up, it will be at least entertaining. Ooh, I'm reading Old World Witchcraft based on your recommendation and loving it. It makes me wish for primary sources pre-witch trials. Yeah, that's the problem with it, is there aren't really that many primary resources pre-witch trials. I'm going to go back up to where I was again now. I completely forgot that I was meant to be answering questions. I just like having a chat with all of you. You're just so nice. Where was I? I think I had to have been around here. I remember this blue emoji. I have to have been around here. Okay, that's a thought form question. I've got to be around here somewhere. I have to be... How have I lost where I am? I used to be scared of Nightmare Before Christmas. I can kind of see that, it's kind of creepy. It's kind of strange. I can watch the first Mummy over and over again until my husband is sick. I can't watch that film. Nope, it's the scarab beetle under the skin. I can't do it. I tried watching it once. It gave me nightmares for years. So, it's not good for me. Ooh, do you know any English folk magic books that dive into saint magic? I've been looking into it and can't seem to find much info. So this will mainly be because a lot of work with saints was often secondary to other forms of magical tradition. And what was done was often done revolving locations where any remaining items were easily destroyed. So what you'll commonly find in folk charms is that they will end with something about the Son, Father, and the Holy Ghost and those kind of things. It will usually have the same style of pattern, and that's because it was really commonplace. It was what the people knew. And oftentimes, people were illiterate, and especially the women, they couldn't read, and they certainly couldn't write. And so, especially during this period, it was often folk charms that were recalled. And so you'll find that the same style of wording was used in hundreds of different charms. They'll almost always end pretty similarly. Simile is something different. Similarly. It's one of those words where once you think about saying it, you can't say it anymore. Similarly. Anyway, they'll all end in a pretty similar way. Why didn't I just say it like that? That would have been so much easier. And that was really commonplace. Working with saints was done, and we see it in terms of wells. So a lot of wells in the British Isles were originally used for worshipping set deities. So they would either be deities or spirits. And so you will have wells that correspond with Bridget, for instance. And you will have other wells that are belonging to set deities like Buka, for instance, and many others. And as Christianity swept across the British Isles, you will find that these wells were transferred into the name of a set saint. So it became Saint Bridget's Well instead of Bridget's Well. So she went from being a pagan goddess, or at least a pre-Christian goddess, to being a saint. And that shift meant that a lot of the things that were given as offerings to different saints, not just Saint Bridget, but also many others, were in wells and in waterways, and they were often lost. And you will find that there's a few workings that have survived in relation to saints, and that's where we get a lot of information from Saint Bridget, but not as much as you would see other things. So I will keep an eye out, and hopefully I will find some books with folk magic about saints, but because I don't practice it actively myself in regards to saints and including Christian wording in my own practice, it's not something that I actively seek out, but I will try to find at least some recommendations for saint magic in folk magic, British folk magic books. Thank you so much for recommending Psychic Witch and The Crooked Path, by the way. They were just great reads. I'm very glad that you think so. I loved those 2 books. They were phenomenal. So I am still trying to read the new Keldon book, The Witch's Flight. Is that what it's called? I don't know. I know the cover is blue with some witches flying on brooms. I'm trying to read that at the minute, along with many others, and trying to get through that. So hopefully that one will be as good. Fingers crossed. I did a well dressing when I was in guides. Yeah, well, I mean, well dressings are still really commonplace. If you live in the British Isles and you want to connect with the spirit of water or local spirit of water, go to a local well dressing. They usually occur around Beltane time. It's usually a Sunday, usually, not always, around Beltane, where they will still dress wells. And often it's the local church that does it in relation to the saint that is attached to the well, but you can really convert that into being the spirit of that well, because water was such a precious resource. Often all water sources had some kind of spirit attached to them that you can then work with in your own practice. Where was I going with this? I went off on a tangent. I know that much. Oh, I don't remember. Sorry, but I have completely forgotten. Have you ever been to Watkins Books in London? No, but I really want to. I've not been down to London in a very, very long time. London is scary. It's stressful. I don't like it. I don't like it. But I really want to go to the Last Tuesday Society. I want to go to Atlantis Bookshop. I want to go to Treadwell's. I want to go to Watkins. There's so many places I want to go, but I just don't like people. If I could just go one day and there was just no one in London, it would probably be creepy as all hell, but it would be so peaceful. Damn, that would be some peace and quiet, and then I could thoroughly enjoy everything that's there. Yeah, I'm really going to have to follow it up with Mastering Magic. I will have to get that book. I need to finish reading. I need to finish reading the books that I have, because I have gone to a few second-hand bookshops where I've managed to get some out-of-print books. And I always like grabbing the out-of-print books because it's information that I really can't get anywhere else, and then I get to share it with all of you. So I have a bunch of out-of-print books that I need to read. And then I have a bunch of books I got from Glastonbury that I need to read. So once I'm done with those, then I will consider buying another book. But yeah, I really want to go to these amazing bookshops. I see people going into Treadwell's, I follow them on Instagram, and it's oh my God, that looks amazing. And then I think of going into London and I'm like, no, thank you. Some places I can deal with. I can deal with Bath. Bath is fine. Oxford is fine. Those kind of cities are fine. They're not that's what London feels like to me. It's like 1,000 people screaming in my ear, and it's just tremendously unpleasant. I like it peaceful and quiet, where there's no one else around. That's nice. Oh, it's back. God damn it. I thought I'd replaced it with something else. Oh, it jumped. Anyway, while I'm down here, I'm going to answer this one. This is, what do you think of Wild Witchcraft by Rebecca Bayer? So I started this one and I ended up not getting that far into it before I got distracted. And I don't have any strong positive or negative feelings towards that book, which, I'll be honest, usually means it's a bit meh. It's what the youth would call mid. I don't understand what does that mean? I don't understand. But it was just kind of, it's fine. I've read better books on similar subjects, so I will finish it and I will give it its own little time, and I will thoroughly come at it from an open mind. I will come at it with an open mind. But I am not convinced. Not convinced yet, but we'll see. It might miraculously pick up. I've read some books where I'm like, oh my, this is so boring. I don't want to read this anymore. And then all of a sudden it'll be the best book I've ever read in my entire life. So maybe that will happen. Maybe. Do you have any fun divination stories? I recently did a tarot reading with my friend, and our 3 cards were perfectly mirrored. She pulled my cards all reversed and in the reverse order. That is really, really cool. I don't necessarily have anything really cool like that. I went through some stories in the last live stream, so I'm not going to repeat those again, but there is one that I do remember quite vividly, and it was while I was still studying, and we had a group get together, and we were inviting new people in to kind of ask us questions and, you know, like an open day for the Pagan Society. And we were asked to bring in like tools and items and divination tools, because a lot of the people that were coming in were interested, but they weren't active practitioners themselves. They were just curious. And I brought in my tarot deck, which at the time, the one I used the most was the Wild Unknown. Yeah, the Wild Unknown. And that deck never gives me a good reading for myself. I can't read for myself with that deck, but I can read for everyone else with that deck, which is why I don't use it that much anymore. I used to do readings for other people, now I don't, so I don't really use it so much. But with that deck, I did a reading for a gentleman that I had never met before. Didn't know anything about him, didn't even know his name. He was just curious about tarot, so I did him a reading. And as I was doing the reading and I was talking about like each of the cards and how they connected together and what it would mean in his life, he just kind of stared at them completely blank. And I'm sitting there going, I regret doing this. I know what this conversation is going to be like. It's going to be this isn't right and that isn't right and this is all nonsense and this is all bullshit. And I was bracing myself for it. And then he looked up and he just went, how did you do that? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you've given me like no emotion this entire reading. Like, I have no idea whether you are getting what I'm saying and it matches with your life. Like, you've given me nothing. And like all of the cards revolved around the Sun card. And it was weird because like the cards didn't make any sense separate, but they all related to the Sun card. And at the end of it, he was like, everything that you have just pulled relates to my girlfriend, and my nickname for my girlfriend is my sun. And I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. And like that was that moment where I'm like, okay, I like you, deck. You are a good deck for reading for other people. And that was a really nice day because like he went away like chuffed as anything, and I was really chuffed because I was really worried that I was going to get like harassed in a lecture theatre essentially. So that was really nice. But yeah, that's my interesting story. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say, sorry, this is in relation, like, Magna says, Wild Witchcraft is an awesome book, especially for people looking for folk magic and herbalism relating to the Appalachian Mountains. And that's what I mean when I say, like, never take my book reviews as being, like, hard and true. You know, like, it's my opinion on a book. And for me, like, Appalachian folk magic doesn't relate to me at all. So I'm reading the book and I'm just like, oh no, I'm not a fan of it. But if you are interested in it, then it could be something to look into. And that's why with all of my book recommendations and reviews, please look into the book thoroughly before you consider getting it, just to make sure that it is definitely for you. Because, you know, books I love might not be for someone else, you know? Do you have any interesting or frightening stories from astral projection? I mean, I have been eaten alive by wolves before. That wasn't very much fun. And then I did have something follow me back through astral projection once, but that was entirely my fault. So don't get scared from astral projection just because of those two things, because I've been doing it for years and those are the only two bad experiences. Well, no, I lie. There was a third bad experience where I was chased a lot, and yeah, that wasn't so nice either. But I've had some like frightening astral projection experiences, but not enough for me to consider it as being anything that I wouldn't do again going forwards. So the being followed back wasn't so nice. I had to do some things to fix that problem. Nothing quite like spirits hanging from ceilings and standing in the corner, like, not so nice. So I did have to deal with that. But yeah, not too many actually. A lot of them I tend to keep kind of a little bit more to myself just because they're not so nice and a lot of people would get really freaked out by them. But yeah, that one where something followed me back, it's the only time in my entire practice that something has followed me back from astral projection. So if anyone's worried about that happening, It doesn't happen, at least in my experience, very often at all. That time was my own mistake, because with astral projection, ideally, you want to be taking like a different route back. A bit like how you would from a graveyard. You walk to a graveyard one way, you walk back a different way. I kind of snapped myself out of astral projection really quick, because I kind of realized I was astral projecting a little bit too late. And when I did, I took a really easy route back, and I brought something back with me. So yeah, that wasn't great, but that one was on me. You know, that was my fault. Have you ever had, I'm sure I just saw sleep paralysis. I'm sure I did. I definitely just saw a question on sleep paralysis. And now I can't see it. Anyway, the question was, have I ever experienced sleep paralysis? I have occasionally. It doesn't happen very often. I know that for some people it happens a lot. I've only had it maybe like once or twice in my life. And I can understand why people would think that what they're seeing is a spirit. I can very much understand that. But having experienced both of them, there is definitely a distinct feeling difference between the two, which I found very interesting, because before I had sleep paralysis experiences, I didn't know what the differences would be like, because a lot of people who have sleep paralysis do think that what they are experiencing are spirits, when actually it's just your subconscious mind still being present while your body is awake. It's really weird, and I can understand why it's absolutely terrifying. So yeah, it's a weird one, that. How do you choose the books that you read? I personally feel the energy from the book I'm holding and go with the positive energy. I pick things that I find interesting. Is generally how I work them. I look at the back of the book, I see if the information is interesting, I flick through it, and if the front page says do what you will but harm none, I'll close that book and I'll put it back in the bookshop, because I've got no interest in it. And then I'll just flick through. If it's something that I've covered dozens of times before, you know, if it's a book where 3/4 of the book is elements, candle colours, herbal correspondences, then I will just put it back, mostly because I have dozens and dozens and dozens of books with those pieces of information in it, and I don't need any more specifically. So yeah, that's generally how I choose, but that's because I have a lot of books, and a lot of books do have repeating information in it, so I do have to be careful not to double up. I had a friend mention to me that they were going to celebrate Witchmas. Can you explain what that is? I'm pretty certain that that will just be a quirky name for Yule, which has been blended with Christmas. So it's essentially like a Yule, winter solstice, Christmas celebration with a witchy flair to it. It's not really a true holiday, so to speak. It's more like a blended. It's a term that's used to describe a blend of different celebrations. At least that's as far as I know. Anyway, I've never heard of an actual celebration that's called Witchmas. It's more just like a witchy Christmas. So it's like Yule and Christmas kind of smushed together. Sounds fun, honestly. I'm glad I moved on to a Christmas song now. I'm okay with that. Can you drain excess anxiety energy to power a servitor? I have generalized anxiety and hypervigilance. Can I direct the excess energy into something to power house protections? Yeah, I mean, you can. I will just say, obviously, it's not going to be a solution, so just bear that in mind. But, I mean, you definitely can, and a lot of times people will have it gather unnecessary energy from their home as a way of powering them as well, or energy of people tapping their leg, for instance. It's often a response, you know, if you're trying to focus on something, if you're anxious about it. So really any energy it can draw on, and so you can use it for this purpose. It just isn't going to be a solution. It's just going to be an additional aspect to your house protection. Are you still watching Supernatural? What are your thoughts? I I am. I got halfway through season 2 and then I just wasn't focusing on it anymore. And I think the problem I have is that I'm used to watching shows like we used to watch shows. You know, like there'd be a new episode every week and you could like digest that episode and like get excited for the next episode. And now they're all on Prime. I think they're all on Prime. Anyway, they're all on Amazon Prime. And you can just watch like 10 episodes while you're working. And by the end of it, I have no idea what episode is which. All of the episodes have blurred together. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I got to like halfway through season 2 and I kind of don't know what's happening anymore. Like, I kind of know what's happening, but like season 1 is so much more memorable to me. I'm still confused though, right? I stopped watching Supernatural on a very, very specific episode, and I think I might have made it up. Like, it was the Llorona? Llorona. I don't know what the specific name of the spirit is, but I think she's a spirit in Mexico who kidnaps children and drowns them. And I'm sure that I stopped watching it on that episode and I can't find that episode. I might have imagined it. I think I might have made that one up. So I'm still going. I'm like chipping away at it, but like 15 seasons. 15 seasons. Like, damn, that's a lot of episodes to get through. Ooh, I don't know if you use a staff in your practice. If you do, how would you use it? So for me, I don't use staffs often. Oh, yeah, La Llorona. I knew I didn't make it up. I don't know what season it's in, though. I watched all of season 1, and I'm like 3/4 of the way through season 2, and I'm sure I didn't watch that far into Supernatural, and yet I remember watching that episode, and I have not seen it. I'm confused. But honestly, thank you so much for telling me that I did not make it up, because I vividly remember that episode, and I watched it at like 2 a.m. and it freaked me out. And then I didn't watch it ever again. Because that was one of those times where you know you shouldn't watch something alone because you're already spooked, and then you watch it anyway, and yeah. Wings and Fairy Tale is long months of watching. I know, I tried watching Fairy Tale. I realised I got halfway through a question and then I transitioned on something else. I promise I will get back to it. I tried watching Fairy Tale. I watched way too much of that. I kept watching and kept watching and kept watching and kept watching. And then I heard that they were dubbing the last section of it. And then I just gave up. I think I watched like 100+ episodes and then I just gave up because I was like, I don't remember anything that's happened. Like, I just give up. If I'm going to watch anime, it's going to be something that's like a little bit more condensed. I can't do Naruto. I can't do Bleach. I got halfway through Bleach and then I was like, every single episode is the same. I'm not doing this anymore. And then I did the same with Fairy Tail. I got partway through and I was like, I can't do this anymore. There's too many episodes. And I'm like hankering to rewatch The Vampire Diaries, but I know that's going to be like 3 months of dedicated watching to get through The Vampire Diaries. So, and I can't commit to that. I can't. So I'm watching Wednesday because I know it's only 8 episodes and I'm fine with that. Yeah, it was about staffs. That's what it was about. It was about how do you use a staff in your practice. So I have a staff and I don't typically use it, but if I am going to use it, I'll use it for a few different things. So one thing is doing a compass round. I will use a staff for a compass round. I find it a lot easier, as well as walking the mill, because it allows you to have support on something solid that you're holding onto. You can also like lean your head into it as you're walking around, and that makes it a lot easier. If you just do, like, if you walk the mill a lot, it's that the equivalent of that game, you know, when you're kids, when you put your head on like a baseball bat and you walk around it and then you try and run in a straight line. It's the equivalent of doing that, and you can make yourself feel really weird. So I like having that kind of... That ambulance was going crazy fast. Actually, it probably wasn't an ambulance. It was probably a police car. Oh! And another one. Okay, anyway. So that's when I'll use a staff. That's really useful. I'll also use a staff if I'm going to a particularly significant place and I want to draw the energy into it, because a staff can contain a lot more energy than a wand can. And generally, I would use a staff for large outdoor circle castings, especially with groups. It's easier if you are marking the edge of that circle to use a staff than it is something like a wand. It's much easier. And so they're great for words. It's great for group rituals or outdoor rituals. Just make sure that you put what is the name of it? It's an iron or metal spike that you hammer into the bottom of a staff. And it covers the bottom of the staff so that if you're walking on boggy ground, it's not going to rot the wood from the inside up. But yeah, those are all really good options. House of Dragon is good. I've watched the first episode because it was on YouTube. I have not watched any of the others. But what I watched was good, but I've never seen Game of Thrones. I've never seen it. I'm not like, oh, I've never seen it. No, it's like, I got halfway through the first episode and then I just didn't keep watching it. And then it just kept going. And then when I heard what they did in season 8, I was like, maybe I just won't. Maybe I just won't. So, and then Dragon's Den. Dragon's Den, that's an old school British TV show. I like Dragon's Den. They kind of scare me though, honestly. Like the dragons kind of freak me out. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be in front of them, that's for damn sure. Have you seen The Ancient Magus Bride? It's an anime about magic and the Fae. I haven't, but that sounds amazing. Okay, saving that. Most definitely saving that. Oh, it looks amazing. Okay, I'm definitely going to have to watch that. Yeah, I've never seen it. I have not watched anime in quite a long time, though. I really should get back into it again, honestly, because like there's so many that I would love to watch. Did you watch the Lord of the Rings show Rings of Power? I did. I liked it. I was very confused. Okay, I'm not going to start a debate in this. I already have to debate with my partner about this all the time because they don't like Rings of Power. I'm just confused. I'm confused by the lore because it seems all wrong. But the show as just a standalone show, I liked. I was just very confused. But yeah, beautiful scenery. Loved the characters. Like, I liked getting to see parts of the world that we've never seen before. And like, I loved a lot of the characters. Like, oh, I forget what her name is. My favorite character of the entire show was, oh my goodness, what was her name? She was one of the dwarves. Married to the prince. She was my favorite. I really liked her. So yeah, I will keep watching that when it comes out again. I know a lot of people refuse to watch it because of the lore breaking, but I don't know. I'm not that rigid, honestly, with any of it. If it's a good show, I'll watch it. I don't really care. It's only if it's long that I have problems with. That's the problem. How are you going to spend your Christmas, Yule, or winter season? Family visit with big feast, ? I spend Christmas with my family. And yeah, it's kind of strange. So I have like this really quick period before Christmas of Yule, and then it's straight into like Christmas celebrations. So, but none of my family, well, most of my family don't celebrate it in any kind of religious way. So it's just like food, get together, Christmas trees, presents, terrible Christmas music, and all that jazz. It's nice. It's fun. Have you watched The Witcher? I have, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it, especially season 1. That was my favorite. I know people got confused by all the time jumping, but I loved it, and very excited for more of that. Oh, here we go. I'm very drawn to springs and wells. What do you do at them? Do you wash in them or drink the water? Secondly, this was about the humming. Anyway, so what do you do with springs and wells? Really, that's going to depend on the water, what you know about it, how clean it is, where it's come from, whether it's attached to any kind of sacred site, etc. Because what you're going to do is going to dramatically vary. So for instance, the well that I will often go to is the White Spring/well in Glastonbury. And I'll also go to the Chalice Well, which is next door. And at the Chalice Well, you can drink the water, but not like get in it. I mean, you can get your feet in part of it, but that's below the drinking bit. And that water is tested and they make sure that it's all safe. At the White Spring, you can get into the water, but you can't drink it. So kind of two polar opposites there. At some springs, they are sacred to specific churches or specific sites, and so it's more about sitting and being present. You can communicate with spirits there, particularly spirits of the well, spring, or the water element. You can interact with water fae and also water spirits and other nature spirits around the area. And then you can connect with them via divination, through meditation, those kind of things. You can also draw on the energy of the water element. You can take that water home with you. I also, as Tiff Witch, has a bunch of water from the chalice well in my fridge. I have some from the chalice well, I've got some from the white well that I will use for different rituals, and you can use that water in your spells and rituals, as well as in cleansing, ritual baths, and the like. So there's lots of different options there, but what you do is definitely going to depend on the space, because if you have a well that is ritually dressed, if you have a well that is very sacred to specific religions or people, then you're not going to want to strip down and bathe in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to very much depend on the water quality, where it comes from, how dirty it is, whether there's any minerals in it that are significant, and those kind of things. Thoughts on the new Charmed series? I haven't watched it, and I've actually been kind of nervous to watch it because Charmed is one of those shows that will always hold like a special place in my heart, just like Buffy. And I just don't like the fact that they remade it when they did, because like you can watch the original Charmed and it's just as good as it was when I first watched it. Like, I don't know. It just didn't seem necessary. It would be like remaking Buffy. Like, don't do it. It will not be as good. Like, you're never going to be as good as the original Buffy. So I will have to give it a go. It's one of them that's in my list to do the What This TV Show Got Right. Oh, by the way, I know I mentioned it earlier. If you haven't seen last week's episode of that, and I know so many people didn't, like it wasn't showing up in anyone's feed, I did a Yuletide special of the What the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Got Right about witchcraft. And that episode is all about their Yule episode with all of their Yule traditions and celebrations. So if you haven't seen it and you liked the last Sabrina episode, then that is one that you can go and watch after this if you want. But I'm hoping to do the new Charmed series and to see what it's like, because I've had people asking for the original and the new one. So I will give it a go. I will try and see if I can watch it. I don't even know what it's available on, actually, so I might not even be able to watch it. Trying to figure out where I was again. I think, though, in a minute, or in a few minutes, I will be heading off because it's been nearly 3 hours. I know that some of you have got your Yule celebrations to attend to, and I'm not going to keep you all night. So I will probably end up heading off in a moment. If you have any last minute questions, I'm still going to go through a few of the ones that I have left that I can answer fairly easily. One here is about, have you ever encountered a demon or demons? I have, yeah, and some of them are not particularly nice. Others are not so bad, so it seems to be very much like people, you know, very varied. It depends on who you end up getting in the lot, I suppose. I've met some that are really nasty and some that are lovely, so... Hearth, someone finally astral travelled but lands in random places no matter how much he tries to get to a specific one. Any tips or tricks for him? That really is just something that's going to come with time and practice. It's not an instant thing. It's going to be slow progress. Pinpointing locations is really difficult. I mean, oftentimes people skip the physical plane altogether and they'll just go straight to the astral plane. It seems like is he trying to go somewhere in the physical plane, or is he trying to go to the astral plane? Because it's something that is going to come with time. Do you have any tips on taking care or connecting with haunted items, and do I have any myself? So I do have some haunted items. in terms of taking care of them, I'll just listen to what they like and what they don't like. Some haunted items that I have are like, yes, talk to me, interact with me, be around me, yes. And others are like, don't even look at me. So just listen to what you get energetically off them. Different haunted items are going to want different things. Some are going to want your interaction and your communication. Others are literally just going to want to sit there and not talk to you at all. So just listen to them is probably the best tip. Don't assume that all haunted items are going to want the same thing, because they're all very, very different. Can a watcher spirit be used as an assistant to magic? Okay, just a quick point here. I have never heard the term watcher be used in regards to spirits so much in my entire life. Like, is this due to, like, I think someone said that the Witch of Wonderlust had done a video calling them watchers. I've never in my entire life heard so many people refer to shades as watchers before. It's kind of strange. I'm assuming that what you're talking about is a shade based on the information I know about that video. I'm not sure, but can they be used as an assistant in magic, or do they always just feed on your powers? I mean, neither. Will it always grow dangerous? None of the above. I'm confused. Shades are some of the sweetest, loveliest little spirits out there. I say little. They're actually not. They're actually not really that little, but they're not going to want to interact with you. They like observing. That's what they enjoy. They like looking and observing and seeing what you're doing, but they're not going to want to interact with you. And maybe it's a location-based thing. It depends, see, because watchers mean different things to different people. So I'm going to have to ask for clarity on this one, because some people refer to watchers as they've always been referred to as, which is angels that have fallen from heaven, and they had children with the women of earth that became the Nephilim. That's what a watcher has always been to me and my understanding of watchers. And then in the past few months, I've noticed people using the term watcher to describe a shade or a shadow person that is not an angel. They are not a human. They are a shade, a shadow person. And so, like, what they do and what they mean are two very, very different things. So I've personally, in my location and my experience with shades, which has been long, I've never experienced a shade that has drawn energy from anyone. And that could just be a location-based thing. For me, shades are always observers. They are watchers in the terms of they are watching and observing what you're doing, how you're acting, how you're speaking, how you're behaving, all those kind of things. But that's it. They will just they'll just watch and pay attention. And they won't interact with you necessarily. And they will be observing. But I've never personally known of any shade that is drawing energy from anyone. Like, they have their own energy. They don't need to draw it from anyone else. They are spirits in their own right, separate from humans. They don't need us and our energy. So I'm a little confused by that bit. It could just be a location thing, and I'm not going to rule that out. Like, I'm not going to say that, oh, my experience with shades is the only one. But, like, where I've been, I've never experienced it. But it could very much be a different shades in different places kind of a thing. And I've also never had a shade be nasty or cruel or mean or scary or anything. They've always they're like the puppy dogs of the spirit world is the best way I can describe it. It's like they want to interact, but they're scared to come and play with you, so they just watch you from the sidelines and, oh, you're exciting. Like, that's always what they've been to me. But it's going to obviously vary person to person. So watchers in the angel sense are actually demons. I mean, not necessarily, because I thought fallen angels were supposed to be the first demons. I don't have that kind of religious belief, so I don't know. I don't remember. I read the Bible when I was a child. I've never really read it since. So I don't think so, though, because as far as I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, some angels fell to earth, some descended into heaven, some descended into hell. Goodness, wrong way around. So, like, not all fallen angels became demons. Some became watchers that were kind of forced to watch over but not be able to, like, fully interact. I don't know. Yeah. It's a difficult one because I am not... I'm not well versed on Christian mythology. Olivia recently started using the term watcher in the magical community. I'm unsure if there's other terms for that spirit. Hearing her name, it's the first time I've heard it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad that she's using it, not at all. It's just, I have never heard of them being referred to specifically as watchers. This could be a location thing though. In the UK, I've always known that people within the magical community refer to them as shades or shadow people who watch over, who observe, rather than watchers as the name in their own right. For me, a watcher has always been a spirit, an angel that has fallen from heaven that is forced to be on land, like on earth. I don't know. It's very much just a different people, but I've never heard the term being used so much than in the last 2 months. It's been everywhere over the last 2 months, and it kind of throws me off because I never know what they're referring to. It's a bit like shifting. Shifting now means something completely different. Now TikTok exists, and it always throws me off every single time. Have you tried using the Daniel Noel Starseed and Work Your Light decks? Yeah, Work Your Light is probably one of my favorite decks. I think I've had it for a few years now, and I really like using that deck. It's not the most varied deck in the world, but I like using it in addition to other things. The best way to work with the air element. I mean, there is no real best way. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can work with wind and storms. You can work with incense and feathers and birds and lots of different things. If you want more in depth, there is a book called Air Magic by Llewellyn, which covers so many different things that you can do with air magic, which is way more diverse than what I'm going to be able to talk about. Oh, thank you so much, Relic of Ages. I did not see that. Thank you so much. Happy Yule to you as well, and I hope you have some amazing celebrations or just enjoy the festive season. Interesting. So because I don't watch Witchcraft YouTube, right? So I hear what other people tell me about videos. I might have to watch that video to get some clarity then, because I've had lots of people tell me that it's a shadow person, which is interesting, because I wasn't that would make sense, word-wise. But if it's not, then I'm going to have to watch that video, because I get questions about this every live stream now in terms of the watches that are described in Olivia's video, but I haven't watched it, so I'm gonna have to watch it so I can have some more context, and then I'll be able to answer questions better, because terms just get so confused. So shifting before TikTok meant a lot of things. There was M shifting, loads of things. It was usually a energetic, at least in my experience, it was an energetic shifting of astral forms. So it was your energy shifting into a different form, much like how we would see it in witch trial documents, where they accused the witches of transforming into cats or rats or bats or toads and these kind of things to enter the homes of the people who were sleeping and cause them misfortune and harm. And it was a form of astral shifting. So your astral body separates from your physical body. You can then change that form into something different. That could be, say, a dog, a cat, a wolf, a fox, whatever. And you could travel the astral plane as that shifted energy form. Nowadays, people use the term shifting to mean visualization with a purpose. So I'm confused. I get confused every time, and it's because all of the terms are constantly changing, and it's hard to keep up sometimes, because it's hard to keep up with the changing of the terms that are being used, because every time I go on the internet, there's another term in the witchcraft community that now means something different, and it really throws me off every time. And I think it might be, it's literally no shade to anyone who does it. I think it's often because people who are actively using TikTok are often a little bit maybe more solitary, and maybe they don't interact with other members of the magical community quite so much. So there are already terms for what they're describing and what they're experiencing, but because they're not so much a part of the community that they would know the terms. They create their own term, which then sticks within social media world. And yeah, it's kind of confusing in that regard because everything is changing so quickly. It's so hard to keep up. Any books or resources on shades? Unfortunately, I don't know of any. Every experience I've had with a shade has been my own experience rather than resources. I've had other people tell me about their experiences, but I've never found a book on them. So I'm going to have to go through some books on spirits and see if I can find something that matches up. Oh, interesting. So I think Olivia's watchers are like a super nosy neighbor, mouth breathing, pressed up against your window, looking in, wanting you to give them whatever you're eating. Creepy and discomfort causing. Okay, see, that's interesting. So that is definitely a distinction then between them. So these are probably the kind of spirits that people would describe as having, like I get a lot of people asking about shades with red eyes. And I get that all the time. It's in my DMs, it's in my emails. You know, do you know anything about shades having red eyes? And I have never experienced a shade with red eyes. But they always behave, in everyone's experiences that I've spoken to about this, they always behave in a really nasty way. Like they're not friendly at all. And I'm always really confused because I have never known of a shade with red eyes that behaves like that. So the question is, like, is that something that's different to a shade? And it seems like it is. And it would make sense that they were different. So they're similar enough to be confused, but different enough for them to be distinct. So, interesting. Watchers are what Americans call shades. So this is what I mean. I find it so confusing. I think there's just a lot of confusion within the community. I think it's just become a lot of different terms for very similar spirits, or sometimes the same spirits called dozens of different names. Given that, then it sounds a lot like watchers are similar to shades in that their appearance is similar, but they might have slight physical differences, because I've never known of a shade with red eyes, but I've heard a lot of people saying that they've experienced negative shades with red or orange eyes. So I don't know. That's interesting. Is shifting, the older definition, an actual thing? Like, would it be possible for your spirit to look like a fish or something in the astral? Oh yeah, it happens all the time. You can go to the astral plane, and especially if you're attending coven groups and things like that, you will often find that there are certain members of that group who don't appear in their human form, but appear in an animal that they are connected with. That could be the animal that they have as their familiar, and it will allow you to travel easier and communicate better potentially with your familiar if it does take on a form, because the spirit will choose a form that best suits you. So sometimes that is how it actually looks, and sometimes it's a form that it thinks that you will resonate better with. So oftentimes familiars will look really grotesque perhaps, but to you, when they come to you, they will be a spirit of a fox, for instance. That doesn't mean that that familiar is a fox. It means that spiritually it's taking on the form of a fox, so that when it comes to you in dreams and in meditations and visions, it's something that's more palatable to you. So in the astral, people will often become animals in their energetic form. And it's often easier, and they can attend to different things that they would normally. You can experience the astral plane differently in an animal form than you would in a human form. So it's interesting, and it's quite likely that that is what was referred to when you hear or you read confessions, particularly from the early modern period when the witch trials were really popular. You will hear of people saying that, you know, I transformed into a cat and I entered such and such a person's house. And usually that's not in a physical form, like it reads like it's physical, but oftentimes they will, it's a little tricky. There is a book called A Deed Without a Name, which really explains this phenomenally well. What we perceive as being real and being in our minds are very different to how people perceived them in the past. Dreams and astral projection were just as real as the physical walking, I can touch this, I can touch you kind of waking day. So in Confessions, they would admit that they transformed themselves into a cat and travelled into someone's home to cause them misfortune. It reads like they did it physically, but what they actually mean is that spiritually, they reduce themselves energetically down to that animal form to enter astrally into another space. And that's where it gets kind of confusing and things get mushed together, because the witch trials sound like fiction, but when you actually break it apart and think about it from a magical perspective, it makes a lot of sense, because to the practitioner, traveling astrally to the Sabbat was as real as attending a party in your waking life. You know, traveling as an animal in the astral was just as physical and real to them as petting their neighbor's cat. Like, it's just part of their everyday life. It's only now that we perceive the world as being in like little boxes, like this is real, this is a dream, this is fantasy. Like, it wasn't like that the same way as it is now, and that's where it can get kind of confusing. So yes, as Dumbledore said, just because it's a dream doesn't mean it isn't real, or just because it's in your head, it's not real, whatever the quote was. But yeah, and I think I'm going to leave on that, because it's been 3 hours. It's shorter than my normal live stream, so that is something. So I hope that you did enjoy this stream. I hope that you have a fantastic Yule, winter solstice, whatever it is that you're doing. If you are going to be watching the sunrise at Stonehenge tomorrow, I hope that you can stay awake. I know I am going to struggle because I have to get up at like 6 a.m. 6 a.m. to watch that. But yeah, I would love it if you are interested, if you could come over, not literally, but watch digitally and see sunrise at Stonehenge. I'm also going to put a playlist in the description box of this video, or in the comments or something, that is my current Yule playlist. So if you would like to listen to the music I am listening to this Yule, feel free to use that. It's on Spotify. So the link will be listed, but I'm going to do that after the video is processed. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on Yule. I hope you all have a fantastic celebration. Thank you, everyone, for just being here, and for anyone who supported the channel by liking the video or sending me a message or donating. It all goes funneling back into the channel again, so it really, really means a lot to me. And yeah, I will see you next week with a Glastonbury haul video, and then I might be taking a week off so that I can just decompress, because winter is stressful. Like, December is so stressful. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you're all staying safe, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, and massive thank you to all of my mods, and yeah, go give them a pat on the back, because like, my mods are great and they keep the stream running smoothly. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Right.